Chapter 2620. This voice. All the immortal kings stared at the gloomy space not far away, and their expressions were indeterminate. The immortals and monks near the divine tree were dumbfounded, their faces filled with disbelief. Araki Takashi. This is the voice of Araki Takashi from the demon domain. How is this possible? Wasn't Araki Takashi killed by the joint forces of the 19 peerless immortal kings, and destroyed his body and soul? Even the void was pierced through. But Araki Takashi is still alive? Emo Ching was overjoyed. She subconsciously clenched her fists, and looked at the figure that gradually appeared in the dark void. She didn't dare to look away, as if she was afraid that the figure would disappear again. Yunju heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Su Zimo, who was on the peak of Jinmu Mountain, somewhat reproachfully. He seems to have become stronger. Junyu looked at the dark void and murmured softly. On the demon domain side, Feng Cantillon and the others finally relaxed and smiled. Although Araki Takashi was only Wu Dao's true body, if Araki Takashi died, there might be a huge turmoil in the Heaven Baron sect. On the peak of Jinmu Mountain, Immortal King Ling Long also heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that Araki Takashi was fine. However, she looked at the dark void with a confused expression. Even with her knowledge, she couldn't see how Wu Dao's true body came back to life. She could only roughly determine that after this incident, Wu Dao's true body had evolved a grotto heaven that belonged to him. Beside the divine tree of Jinmu, Wu Dao's true body, wearing a silver mask, slowly walked out of the dark void. He was wearing a purple robe, and looked no different from before. However, Immortal King Qin Yang and the others could clearly sense that Araki Takashi had become even more terrifying at this moment. They could sense the aura of a grotto heaven from Araki Takashi's body. Grotto heaven realm? All the immortal kings frowned with solemn expressions. The dark cave on Araki Takashi's body was strange and ever-changing. It was as if it had merged with his entire body, and was faintly discernible. How could this be? The immortal kings were puzzled. Out of caution, they didn't act rashly. The heavenly abode created by Araki Takashi in front of them seemed to be vastly different from the heavenly abodes they knew. Normally speaking, the shattering of a cultivator's Dao fruit occurred outside their body. After all, the shattering of a Dao fruit would release a tremendous amount of energy that could even pierce through the void. If it was placed inside one's body, it would be enough to blast one's physical body into ashes. Before he could form his grotto heaven, he had already died. In other words, when a cultivator became an immortal king, they would form a heavenly abode outside their body. Although the grotto heaven was outside the body, it was closely related to the body. With the help of the grotto heaven, one could connect to the heavens and plunder the heaven and earth yuan qi. And Araki Takashi's grotto heaven seemed to be located within his body? Inner grotto heaven? In fact, the martial Dao true body's paradise was neither external nor internal. To be precise, Wu Dao's paradise was his grotto heaven. The reborn Wu Dao's paradise was already indistinguishable from this grotto heaven. Wu Dao's paradise had returned to the world as a grotto heaven. In terms of cultivation level, Wu Dao's paradise was still at the true martial realm, and the real Wu Dao's body was at the perfected level. However, with the help of the real Wu Dao's body's uniqueness, he had formed his grotto heaven in another way and become a demon king first. Because his Dao body was the Dao fruit, no one could replicate this path. Eternal Night Immortal King narrowed his eyes and said faintly, Araki Takashi, you're still alive. You do have some tricks up your sleeve. From the looks of it, you seem to have profited from a disaster? Amipa, Heavenly King Luoshan said slowly. Since Araki Takashi is still alive, we can just kill him again. That's right, Azure Sun Immortal King said in a low voice. Everyone, let's work together. There can't be any mistakes this time. In a few words, the 19 peerless immortal kings once again propped up their grotto heavens and surrounded Wu Dao's paradise. You still want to kill me? Wu Dao's paradise looked at the 19 peerless immortal kings charging over and shook his head slightly. He said calmly, You're too naive. As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Dao's paradise also launched a counterattack. Without any unnecessary movements, he raised his hand and punched Heavenly King Luoshan, who was charging over. This punch not only contained Wu Dao's techniques, but also the power of this new grotto heaven. Boom! Wu Dao's paradise's fists collided with Heavenly King Luotian's paradise. In fact, this was also the collision between Wu Dao's paradise and Heavenly King Luotian's paradise. Heaven and earth trembled, as if letting out a sorrowful cry. The two sides were in a stalemate in mid-air for a moment. Heavenly King Luotian's expression changed drastically. His paradise could not hold on any longer. Cracks appeared faintly on it, and it could collapse at any time. How is this possible? Araki Takashi has just been crowned as the king of grotto heavens. It's just a small grotto heaven. My paradise can't even withstand it? Heavenly King Luotian was shocked and furious. The reason Wu Dao's paradise could unleash such an attack was not just because of a small grotto heaven. It was because of the perfected true Wu Dao body and the small grotto heaven that he could unleash such shocking power. At the same time, Wu Dao's paradise's paradise launched a counterattack. Including the first punch, he threw 19 punches in succession, targeting the 19 immortal kings present. When he was at the perfected true martial realm, Wu Dao's paradise's paradise could suppress the paradise's paradise immortal kings. Now, Wu Dao's paradise's power had skyrocketed, and he could completely suppress the peerless immortal kings present. The moment he transformed into his paradise, the situation of this battle had completely changed. Boom, boom, boom. A series of loud bangs shook heaven and earth. The void beneath the divine builder tree was constantly being torn apart. The abodes of the 19 peerless immortal kings were struck by Wu Dao's true body to the point they were on the verge of collapse, and they were utterly unable to resist. How can he be so powerful? The 19 supreme immortal kings were shocked. Even though the peerless immortal kings had surrounded Wu Dao's main body, in reality, they were already facing a situation where they could collapse at any moment. As long as one of them showed signs of cowardice and chose to retreat, the rest of the supreme immortal kings might follow suit and retreat. The 19 supreme immortal kings were still hesitating. After all, Araki Takashi had just stepped into the grotto heaven realm, and they had been famous for many years. Now that there were 19 immortal kings joining forces, it was really not good for them to retreat. While Green Sun Immortal King and the others were hesitating, Wu Dao's true body didn't give them any time to think. Swallow! Wu Dao opened his heavenly abode and shouted. His figure seemed to have disappeared, and a huge and strange dark grotto heaven appeared in midair. It kept spinning, pulling and tearing apart the surrounding 19 grotto heavens. The 19 grotto heavens were already on the verge of collapse, under the counterattack of Wu Dao's true body just now. Now being torn apart by this huge force, they couldn't hold on at all and completely collapsed. The endless power of the grotto heavens was devoured by Wu Dao's dark grotto heaven. Some broken fragments of the grotto heavens were even devoured by Wu Dao's dark grotto heaven. Normal grotto heavens were connected to the heavens and the three realms. They could crazily plunder and absorb the essence energy between heaven and earth, remove impurities and refine them, allowing the grotto heaven to gradually grow. As for Wu Dao's grotto heaven, it was an anomaly that had already jumped out of the three realms. It was very difficult for this grotto heaven to grow even if it absorbed the essence energy of heaven and earth. Only by absorbing and refining Dao arts and devouring other grotto heavens could it transform. Chapter 26-21. Immortal King Qingyang and the others suddenly realized that the grotto heavens they had condensed were being continuously devoured by the dark grotto heaven that Araki Takashi had transformed into. Their grotto heavens were being pulled and torn apart. The immortal kings were shocked. This Araki Takashi's grotto heaven was actually able to devour their grotto heavens. Since ancient times, countless geniuses had been born. There were also some monsters who had cultivated terrifying grotto heavens that possessed the power of devouring. However, even if they had cultivated such a devouring grotto heaven, they would at most devour the other party's mystic arts, grotto heaven power, or divine weapons and magic treasures. No immortal king dared to devour the other party's grotto heaven like Araki Takashi did. One had to know that each of their grotto heavens was condensed from their cultivation profoundness. It could be said that each immortal king was the only god in their respective grotto heavens. Devouring the other party's grotto heaven meant devouring the Tao techniques contained in the other party's grotto heaven. And the Tao techniques in each grotto heaven were different. Once one forcibly devoured the other party's Tao techniques and integrated them into one's own grotto heaven, it meant that there would be an intense conflict of Tao techniques in one's own grotto heaven. This was equivalent to shifting the battlefield to one's own grotto heaven. If one couldn't suppress it, one's own grotto heaven would explode, and one's Tao would vanish without waiting for the other party to make a move. In the top auction houses of the upper realm, there would indeed be some priceless treasures that would be circulated, such as the grotto heaven fragments of fallen immortal kings. These grotto heaven fragments contain the Tao techniques of fallen immortal kings themselves. For some grotto heaven realm experts, they could use a long time to gradually digest and refine these fragments and comprehend the Tao techniques within. There wouldn't be too much of a conflict. For Araki Takashi, to forcefully devour their grotto heavens was simply an unprecedented act of madness. Moreover, Araki Takashi didn't just want to devour the grotto heaven of one peerless immortal king. He even wanted to devour the grotto heavens of 19 peerless immortal kings in one go. What a big appetite. Aren't you afraid of being stuffed to death? Eternal Night Immortal King's expression was furious as he shouted loudly. One had to understand that they were all still alive, in their peak states. The heavenly passages not only contained their Tao techniques, but also their powerful wills. This Araki Takashi was too overbearing and unreasonable. Not only did he want to devour their Taoist techniques, he also wanted to subdue their wills. Heavenly King Luotian activated his primordial spirit, and the large paradise behind him shone with Buddhist light. It was filled with boundless golden light, and he said solemnly, "Since this devil wants to die, we shall grant him his wish." The 19 peerless immortal kings surged with their qi and blood, forcefully supporting the large grotto heaven, and continued to pressure Wu Dao's original body. Wu Dao's figure was faintly discernible in the dark cave. Facing the 19 heavenly grotto heavens, he did not reject any of them, and devoured them with all his might. If it was an ordinary abode, it would indeed be unable to directly devour the abodes of other immortal kings. However, the abode of Wu Dao's main body was a variant, and it wasn't in the 3 dimensions, so it wasn't restricted by the laws of this expanse of the heavens and the earth. In a short period of time, Wu Dao's main body's grotto heaven couldn't refine the 19 large grotto heavens. However, his grotto heaven was like a bottomless abyss, and it was like a sea that could swallow hundreds of rivers. It would first devour the Tao techniques of the 19 large grotto heavens, and then slowly refine them in the future. The two sides were in a stalemate for a while, and the expressions of immortal King Qingyang and the others turned ugly. Araki Takashi devoured their different Tao techniques, but not only did the dark grotto heaven not explode, it became even more terrifying. The area of the grotto heaven became even larger, and its devouring power became even stronger. Immortal King Qingyang and the others could clearly feel that the Tao techniques contained in their grotto heavens were weakening, and their power was also weakening. If this continued, their hundreds of thousands of years of cultivation might be devoured by Araki Takashi. Their large grotto heavens might even drop in cultivation level and become small grotto heavens. This was a loss they couldn't bear. Retreat. This thought flashed through immortal King Qingyang's mind. They couldn't delay any longer. Otherwise, before Araki Takashi's grotto heaven exploded, their large grotto heavens would have been completely devoured. While they still had the strength to break free, they had to leave as soon as possible. This Araki Takashi's Dao technique was simply too evil. Perhaps only a peak immortal king, with a perfected grotto heaven, would be able to firmly suppress it. Thinking of this, immortal King Qingyang retreated and said in a deep voice, "Everyone, hold on for a while. I'll send a message to the Divine Firmament Palace." As soon as immortal King Qingyang retreated, before he could finish speaking, the other dozen, or so peerless immortal kings also retreated. The joint forces of the 19 peerless immortal kings instantly collapsed. This group of peerless immortal kings had lived for hundreds of thousands of years, and each of them wished that they had 9 orifices in their hearts. Who would be foolish enough to stand in front? Wu Dao's original body appeared once again. His body spewed out many mysterious and terrifying Dao techniques, transforming into countless blazing runes that surrounded him. His entire aura soared. His eyes were like torches as he directly locked onto Eternal Night Immortal King's aura. In an instant, he arrived in front of him and raised his hand, punching through the air. Eternal Night Immortal King's grotto heaven had already been torn into pieces by Wu Dao's original body, and his aura was weak. Now, facing Wu Dao's original body, Su Shi's punch could not be blocked at all. Rumble! This punch caused the heavens to collapse and the earth to split. Eternal Night Immortal King's grotto heaven completely collapsed. Wu Dao's original body's fist went straight in. After breaking Eternal Night Immortal King's grotto heaven, he still had the strength to punch Eternal Night Immortal King's chest. The powerful and terrifying force instantly shattered Eternal Night Immortal King's body into pieces. In mid-air, blood filled the air. The immortals and monks on the peak of Jianmu Mountain were shocked by this scene, and their faces were filled with fear. Eternal Night Immortal King was not an ordinary immortal king, but a peerless immortal king at the phenomenal success stage of the Grotto Heaven realm. Now, his body was actually shattered by Araki Takashi from the demon domain with a single punch. The other 18 peerless immortal kings were fearful, and did not dare to step forward. If even the peerless immortal kings were like that, the remaining 100+ ordinary immortal kings would not dare to make a move either. Araki Takashi from the demon domain had just condensed his grotto heaven, but he was already so powerful and ferocious. He actually suppressed the immortal kings of the 2 domains to the point where they could not even raise their heads, and avoided him. Wu Dao's original body stared at Eternal Night Immortal King. It was not because there was any deep hatred between the two of them. It was because the Taiching Jade Book was currently in Eternal Night Immortal King's hands. As a peerless immortal king, Eternal Night Immortal King had long expected that his body and bloodline would not be able to withstand the punch from Wu Dao's original body. Just as Wu Dao's original body's fist descended, his essence spirit attached itself to the Taiching Jade Book and fled into the distance with a ball of essence blood. As expected, his body was shattered by Wu Dao's original body with a single punch. A tremendous force was directed at his essence spirit and blood, but it was nullified by the power of the Taiching Jade Book. Eternal Night Immortal King used the ball of essence blood to quickly condense his body. He tore open the rift and prepared to flee back to the Grand Firmament Immortal Realm. Wu Dao's original body chased after him like a shadow. Just as Eternal Night Immortal King tore open the rift, Wu Dao's original body had already caught up to him. At that instant, an unexpected change took place. Chapter 26-22. Suddenly, an evil energy burst out from the void that the Celestial King of Eternal Night tore open. A dark green light flashed and disappeared into the center of the Celestial King of Eternal Night's eyebrows. The Celestial King of Eternal Night's attention was focused on Wu Dao's real body, who was chasing after him. He did not expect a deadly attack to be hidden in the void in front of him. He also did not expect that at the continent of the 9 Clouds meeting, apart from Araki Takashi, who would dare to kill him in front of so many people. The Celestial King of Eternal Night was being chased by Wu Dao's real body. He was already in a state of panic, and he was caught off guard. He was killed by the dark green light that suddenly flashed in the void. The peerless Celestial King had died on the spot. The Celestial Kings were stunned, since the continent of the Nine Clouds meeting, although the cultivators on the true celestial ranking board and the Arhat ranking board had suffered great losses, and even the supreme Arhat was killed by Araki Takashi, no celestial king had died yet. The death of a celestial king was a serious matter. Moreover, it was the death of a peerless celestial king. The death of a peerless celestial king might even alarm the imperial emperors. Wu Dao's real body frowned slightly and suddenly stopped. The existence hidden in the depths of the void made him feel an extremely dangerous aura. It was very likely that this expert had already surpassed the Grotto Heaven realm and reached the imperial realm. It was precisely because of this that he was able to kill the everlasting Night Immortal King in such a clean manner, before swiftly vanishing. Who was this person? How long had he been here? Was he an enemy of the Celestial King of Eternal Night? Or was he here for the Tai Ching Jade Book? Or something else? What made the martial Dao true body feel a little strange was that the green brilliance seemed to be familiar, and it gave him a feeling of extreme disgust. Could it be the sorcerer tribe? It was very difficult for a celestial king to die after reaching the Celestial King realm. The fact that he could kill the Celestial King of Eternal Night so easily showed how terrifying his strength was. Wu Dao's real body did not continue to chase after him. He had completely lost track of the mysterious expert's aura. This person had been lying in ambush here. After killing the Celestial King of Eternal Night, he disappeared as if he had never appeared. His spiritual sense kept warning him. He could not stay here for long. Even without the warning of spiritual sense, Wu Dao's real body. Not far behind him, a powerful being was Celestial King of Eternal Night was awakening. The Divine Builder Tree. The Divine Builder Tree was King of Eternal Night, or for some other reason, the builder of the tree. With the strength of the Divine Builder Tree, all the Celestial Kings present, except for the Celestial Emperors, had to retreat. The Grand of the Heaven. Of the Emperor Heaven. Emperor was eternal, the was from the Emperor King is Emperors of Emperor. He had already achieved his goal of using the peerless Immortal King to shatter his true martial Dao body and condense his Grotto Heaven. There was no need for him to stay here. Return to the Heaven Wasteland sect immediately. Is a of had he s once the ancient divine tree was awakened, it would not care if you were from the Nine Heavens, Pure Land, or Demon Realm. Within the area under its control, all the creatures that intruded would be regarded as alien, as a provocation and a threat to it. Feng Cantion heard the message from Wu Dao's real body and decisively tore the void apart. He took Yin Beichen, Ming Zhen, and the others into the space tunnel and disappeared. On the other side, the Divine Builder Tree was completely awakened. Its body was emitting a violent life force. As if it had sensed the thousands of living beings around it, its thick branches danced. It was like many green pythons, filled with dazzling brilliance. They were enraged. Pa, pa, pa. A few branches swept across and whipped the crowd of more than 100 immortal kings. More than a dozen immortal kings were sent flying, their bodies exploding. Some of the immortal kings released their Grotto Heavens, but they were all shattered by the branches. Ordinary immortal kings were powerless against the Divine Builder Tree. If an immortal king was already like this, then all the true immortals and arhats present would probably be buried here. If all the branches of the divine tree of Jianmu danced in the air. Retreat! Immortal King Qing Yang roared. With his ability, he could not take care of too many people. He could only bring the three fairies, and the other true immortals and prodigies of the divine firmament celestial realm, who were closest to him. He broke through the void, and prepared to escape back to the divine firmament celestial realm. As for the tens of thousands of true immortals of the divine firmament celestial realm, on the peak of Jinmu Mountain, he could not care about them. Immortal King Ling Long remained on the peak of Jinmu Mountain, and did not leave the mountain. At this moment, she first brought Lin Lei and Lin Luo with her. Her gaze turned and landed on Su Zimo. She sent a voice transmission to him. Don't worry, I'll bring you out of here first. The immortal kings could not care too much. They could only bring the true immortals and arhats around them, and break through the void, preparing to escape. However, at this moment, a huge green halo suddenly burst out from the Divine Builder tree's body. It quickly spread and enveloped the surrounding 50 kilometers. The void that had been broken by the immortal kings was enveloped by this green halo and instantly repaired. The space tunnel also disappeared. The void healed and the space tunnel disappeared, blocking all the cultivators from the two regions. All the immortal kings sucked in a breath of cold air and were secretly shocked. What was this Divine Builder tree trying to do? Could it be that this Divine Builder tree wanted to kill all of them here? Wu Dao's original body could have left immediately. However, when he saw the green halo emitted by the Divine Builder tree, he suddenly stopped. It was different from the panic and fear of the others. Wu Dao's original body looked at the green halo and seemed to have thought of something. Purple flames danced in his eyes as he pondered. Smack! A tree branch was flung down. It cut through the void and smashed into the Jianmu mountain, causing the entire mountain to collapse. The dozens of true immortals and arhats on the mountain could not dodge in time, and were directly killed by the Divine Builder tree branch. Their bodies and souls were destroyed, and their souls scattered. On the Divine Builder tree's body, tens of thousands of thick branches had been raised, and were about to lash down at any time. At that time, thousands of Divine Builder tree branches would descend. Not to mention the true immortals and arhats present, even the entire Jianmu mountain might be destroyed. Perhaps only the immortal kings would be able to escape the attack range of the Divine Builder tree, with the help of their own movement techniques. The rest of them would all be buried here. One should know that the geniuses of the two regions had gathered in this continent of the Nine Clouds meeting. If the true immortals and arhats from the two regions were killed here, it would be an irreparable loss to the Nine Clouds celestial realm and the pure land of bliss. The current situation was completely out of control. It was completely out of the control of the immortal kings. The Divine Builder tree had awakened in advance. The immortal kings only wanted to protect themselves and escape from this place. No one cared about Wu Dao's original body anymore. At this moment, an irresistible pressure came from the direction of the Nine Clouds celestial realm and shrouded the Divine Builder tree. On the other side, in the direction of the pure land of bliss, a resplendent and sacred golden light pierced through the layers of clouds, splitting open the sky and sprinkling down, dispersing the green halo around the Divine Builder tree. Chapter 26-23. In the direction of the Nine Heavens immortal region, a figure emitting a terrifying aura slowly appeared, as if he was the ruler of the world. Under such a vast and majestic pressure, not to mention the true immortal arhat, even the immortal kings and heavenly kings present could not withstand it. The immortal emperor had appeared. Su Zimo focused his gaze. The facial features of this immortal emperor were somewhat similar to Qin Si's. If he was not mistaken, this should be Immortal Emperor Taishao. Immortal Emperor Taishao stood in the air. His powerful aura faced the divine tree of Jianmu from afar, temporarily blocking the thousands of branches. He seemed to be communicating with something. However, the divine tree had gone berserk. It didn't give the grand firmament Immortal Emperor any face, and emitted an even more terrifying aura. The tens of thousands of branches instantly broke free from Immortal Emperor Taishao's control, and enveloped the Jianmu mountain range. The thick branches of the thousands of Jianmu trees were luxuriant, and could be said to have covered the sky. A large shadow shrouded down, causing one to feel suffocated. Grand Firmament Immortal Emperor's face turned ugly. With his battle prowess, he was unable to fight against the enraged Divine Builder tree. In the blink of an eye, the Grand Firmament Immortal Emperor made up his mind. He waved his sleeves and protected the cultivators of the Grand Firmament Immortal realm, and fled into the distance. The middle-aged monk's golden light defeated the green halo emitted by the Divine Builder's immortal realm. This meant that immortal kings could tear open the void severely injured by the Divine Builder tree. When Wu Dao saw the two Imperial Emperors, he did not dare to hesitate. He naturally wasn't willing to take this risk. He quickly tore open the void and entered the space tunnel. He could to protect the immortals of the Grand Firmament Immortal Cauldron to protect his back. Upon seeing this, before the cultivators from the other two domains quickly realized as an Imperial Emperor, celestial the middle-aged monk naturally had the opportunity to attack him. The
He took out
immortals
the
and
prison
monks were
suppressing
filled with
cauldron
grief
to
and
prevent any
indignation.
accidents from
Even though
happening.
they were filled with
For some
resentment,
reason,
they
the
did not
middle-aged
dare
monk
to
could
offend
not
Tai
spare
Xiao
any
immortal
time to
emperor.
deal with the divine
Moreover,
builder tree.
they did not have
or
the opportunity
monk
to do
was
so.
injured,
The
and did
attack
not
of the
want to
divine
deal with
skyward
Wu Dao.
tree, in
Had
short,
already
the
enveloped the
middle-aged
entire
monk
Jinmu
did not
mountain.
attack him from
The
the moment Wu
cultivators
Dao
from the
body
two upper
tore open the
regions
void to
were
the
about
moment
to
he
lose
left
their
this
lives
place.
on the spot.
However,
It was at this
when Wu
moment
Dao
that the
turned
golden
around
light from
and
the
looked at the
direction of the
middle-aged
pure
monk,
land of bliss
he realized
shifted
that
rapidly.
the middle-aged monk
It
was
passed
also
through the
looking
gaps
at him.
between the leaves
The two of them
and
looked at each
sprinkled
other.
on the immortals
For some reason,
and monks on the
Wu Dao
summit of
suddenly
Jinmu
felt an
Mountain.
indescribable
Everyone's
sense of
body seemed to
familiarity
be
in
plated
his
with a
heart.
layer of
The
sacred
middle-aged
gold
monk
leaf,
had handsome
shining
features
brightly,
and a benevolent
Rumble.
face.
Tens
He
of
gave
thousands
people a
of
good
builder
impression
tree
of him.
branches smashed
However,
down.
Wu Dao
Shaking
was
the
sure that
heavens
he had
and
never
earth
seen
as a
this
series
person
of loud
before.
noises erupted.
How could this be?
The Jinmu
Where did
mountain
this
range
sense of
beneath them
familiarity
had
come
completely
from?
collapsed.
Not only Wu Dao,
However,
but
the
Qing
sacred
Yan's true
golden
body
light
was
that
also
enveloped the
recalling.
immortals and
Su
monks
Zimo
blocked
believed
most
that the
of the
sense of
damage from the
familiarity
divine tree of
that
builder
flashed
wood.
through Wu Dao's
At
true
some
body
point in time,
was not without
the
reason.
middle-aged monk
The
stood in front of
cultivators of the
everyone.
Nine Heavens
He
immortal
faced the divine
domain
tree of the
and
builder
pure
tree
lands
alone, finally
and
escaped the
protected
attack
everyone.
range of the
The
divine
Buddhist
builder
imperial
tree.
emperor had
With the help
arrived.
of the middle-aged
Compared
monk,
to the divine
the
builder
cultivators'
tree,
faces were
the
pale.
middle-aged monk's
They
figure
looked in
was
the direction
extremely
of the
small.
divine builder
His
tree,
body was not
with
even as
lingering
thick
fear.
as a branch of
If
the
it was
divine
not
builder
for the
tree.
appearance of the Buddhist
However,
emperor,
at this moment,
they would have been
before the
buried
crowd's
under the
gazes,
rubble on the
the
peak of the
middle-aged
divine
monk's
builder
back
mountain.
appeared so tall
As
and
expected
imposing,
of a Buddhist,
especially
he's
when
benevolent
compared to
and
immortal Emperor
sacrificed
Tai
himself to
Xiao.
save others.
The difference in
His
level
realm
between
is high.
the two was
I'm
obvious.
really impressed.
Benefactors,
That's
please
right.
retreat.
This eminent
I can't
monk
hold on
has
for
saved
much
all of our
longer.
lives.
The
We should
middle-aged
repay
monk's
him with
figure
everything
swayed
we
slightly.
have.
We
As
won't
if he had
forget him
suffered a
until we
great
die.
impact,
I wonder
causing
who
his
this
voice
Buddhist
to turn
emperor
hoarse.
is. The
What's
group
his
of
Dharma
immortals
name?
and monks felt
Many
as if
cultivators
they had
who had
just
escaped
awoken
looked
from a
at the
dream.
middle-aged monk in the distance and could not help but whisper. Zen Master Huiwen pondered for a moment and said thoughtfully, "This senior looks like Venerable Lu Brahma." After the middle-aged monk appeared, his back was facing the immortals and monks, so they could not see him clearly. Not long after, the middle-aged monk retreated from the divine builder tree and arrived here. Everyone could see clearly that the middle-aged monk's kasaya was still stained with some blood. It was obvious that he was injured when he fought against the divine builder tree just now. It's really the master of Lu Brahma. When Zen Master Huiwen saw the middle-aged monk, his heart skipped a beat. He was pleasantly surprised and hurried forward. He put his palms together and bowed. "Greetings, Senior Lu Brahma." He was not the only one. A few heavenly kings of the Buddhist sects recognized the middle-aged monk and hurried forward to greet him. They were surprised and delighted with deep respect in their eyes. When the other Buddhist monks saw that, they no longer had any doubts and were overjoyed. They hurriedly knelt down and chanted the name of the sixth Brahma, Heavenly Lord, loudly. Sixth Brahma, Heavenly Lord. Su Zimo suddenly recalled a piece of information that Lu Ping had told him in Heaven and Earth Academy. It was said that when Emperor Bo-sun appeared, he disappeared after killing a few heavenly kings. Only the sixth Brahma Heavenly King survived. After that calamity, the sixth Brahma Heavenly King gained enlightenment and advanced in his Buddhist Dharma. He became an emperor and was known as the sixth Brahma Heavenly Lord. This eminent monk even opened a forum in the Buddhist sects and spread the Tao. Countless Buddhist monks followed him, and he had a huge influence in recent years. Su Zimo frowned and fell into deep thought. He had a feeling that he had overlooked something. Chapter 26-24. At this moment, Su Zimo was not standing with the cultivators from the divine firmament immortal realm. Instead, he was standing beside immortal King Ling Long. Immortal King Ling Long did not notice Su Zimo's abnormality. Instead, she looked in the direction of sixth Brahma Heaven Lord and said with a sigh, as expected of an eminent monk from the Pure Lands, "It's admirable that he has such a big heart." Yeah. Lin Luo, who was beside her, also said softly, "Compared to this eminent monk, immortal Emperor Tai Zhao's cultivation level is far inferior." It's not just his cultivation level. This senior sixth Brahma Heaven Lord's cultivation level seems to be higher than immortal Emperor Tai Zhao's. Immortal King Ling Long pondered for a while and said, I heard that this senior has just entered the Tharch realm. It's quite rare for him to be able to cultivate to this level." Su Zimo was deep in thought, trying to recall. When he heard immortal King Ling Long's words, a thought flashed through his mind. Hiss! Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat, and he sucked in a breath of cold air. He finally remembered why Wu Dao's original body felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity when he saw 6 Brahma Heaven Lord. It was because Wu Dao's original body had felt this sense of familiarity from Bo Sun's body. Su Zimo originally did not connect Bo Sun with 6 Brahma Heaven Lord of the Pure Lands. However, at this moment he recalled the information that Lu Ping had told him and what Immortal King Ling Long had said just now. Everything seemed to make sense. When Bo Sun was born, all the heavenly kings of the Buddhist sect who had surrounded him had died, including the real 6 Brahma heavenly kings. The reason why the 6 Brahma heavenly kings did not die was because the 6 Brahma heavenly kings were transformed from Bo Sun. Others might not have this ability, but Bo Sun cultivated both Buddhism and demon. Many years ago, he had already reached an extremely high level of attainment in Buddhism. Now that he'd struggled free from the Avicii hell, his comprehension in the Buddhist Tao had probably already attained a level that others were unable to imagine. If Bo Sun transformed into a Buddha, no one would be able to see through it except for great emperors. This also explained why Bo Sun seemed to have disappeared from the world after he was born. There was no news of him in the demon domain. This was because Imperial Lord Buoxuan wasn't in the infernal domain at all. He had long since transformed into the 6 Brahma kings of Buddhism, cultivating openly in the pure land of bliss. Of course, going through a death tribulation and achieving enlightenment were all just illusions. Emperor Bo Sun was an expert amongst emperors. What he needed to do was to suppress and conceal his original realm, and then slowly reveal it. In the eyes of others, it was a blessing in disguise, allowing him to ascend to the throne. Bo Sun's true combat strength was far above immortal Emperor Taijiao's. Naturally, he could withstand the Divine Tree's attack. Su Zimo even suspected that 6 Brahma Heaven Lord's reluctance and the bloodstain on his chest were all done on purpose by Bo Sun. This was the only way to win over the hearts of the people. In fact, 6 Brahma Heaven Lord's performance just now was quite good. It wasn't just the monks from the pure land of bliss. Even the cultivators from the 9 firmaments immortal realm admired 6 Brahma Heaven Lord. Even Immortal King Ling Long was full of praise for 6 Brahma Heaven Lord. Su Zimo's expression was solemn. If his guess was right, 6 Brahma Heaven Lord was Imperial Lord Buoxuan. Then, 6 Brahma Heaven Lord's actions of opening a Buddhist forum and spreading Taoist techniques were terrifying. Back then, Imperial Lord Buoxuan had already unified the infernal domain. When he was conquering the pure land of bliss, he was besieged by 2 Imperial Lords. Now he had reappeared in the world, but hid his identity and transformed into a Buddha. It was very likely that he was after the entire pure land of bliss. If 6 Brahma Heaven Lord's influence in the pure land of bliss grew, and eventually reached the peak, there would be countless believers and monks under his command. Bo Sun's ambition was terrifying. Then, the pure land of bliss would very likely become the second infernal domain. When cultivators fell into blind worship and faith, they would no longer be rational. Whether they were a Buddha or a demon only depended on a single thought. At that time, the pure land of bliss would very likely fall into endless slaughter, and blood would flow like rivers. Su Zimo didn't dare to continue thinking about it. Zimo, what's wrong? At that moment, Immortal King Ling Long seemed to have noticed Su Zimo's abnormality. She turned around and asked softly, "Senior, you have to be careful." Su Zimo was about to tell Immortal King Ling Long about 6 Brahma Heaven Lord's identity, when he suddenly felt a scorching gaze. Su Zimo subconsciously looked over, and happened to meet 6 Brahma Heaven Lord's eyes. Those eyes were filled with benevolence and wisdom. However, at this moment, when those eyes looked at Su Zimo, a strange look flashed across them. Hiss! Su Zimo's body trembled. He suddenly felt a chill down his spine. All the hair on his body stood on end, and his scalp tingled. That gaze, 6 Brahma Heaven Lord seemed to have sensed something. That gaze was warning him not to speak nonsense. With Imperial Lord Buoxuan's means, if he wanted to kill him now, no one would be able to save him. "Are you all right?" Immortal King Ling Long noticed the change in Su Zimo's expression and frowned slightly. She followed Su Zimo's gaze and looked at 6 Brahma Heaven Lord not far away. 6 Brahma Heaven Lord's gaze had already shifted away. It was as if he had never looked at Su Zimo since the beginning. Su Zimo's body stiffened a little. He slowly lowered his head. Hearing immortal King Linglong's question, Su Zimo fell silent for a moment. In the end, he shook his head and said, "Nothing." There were two meanings behind Six Brahma Heaven Master's warning gaze. First, he was threatening him. Second, he was reminding him not to speak nonsense. Su Zimo was worried that if he told immortal King Linglong about Six Brahma Heaven Lord's true identity, it would bring disaster to immortal King Linglong, the human emperor, and the others. Even though Su Zimo didn't say anything, his strange behavior still attracted immortal King Linglong's attention. Her gaze inadvertently landed on Six Brahma Heaven Master. In fact, she had felt that something was strange at the beginning. Why did Six Brahma Heaven Lord's cultivation level increase so quickly? However, these doubts flashed through her mind. She didn't think much of it. Now, compared to Su Zimo's reaction just now, immortal King Linglong didn't notice Six Brahma Heaven Lord's abnormality, but she was already wary. At this moment, Su Zimo lowered his head slightly. His eyes were gloomy, and he didn't say a word. There was something he still didn't understand. Logically speaking, Imperial Lord Buoxuan had only met Wu Dao's true body. Today was the first time Qinglian's true body met Six Brahma Heaven Lord, who was disguised as Imperial Lord Buoxuan. How did Six Brahma Heaven Lord know that he was Wu Dao's true body? This was the only possibility for Six Brahma Heaven Lord to notice him immediately and warn him with that gaze. Imperial Lord Buoxuan had once pushed Wu Dao's true body to the Avicii Great Hell. Why didn't he attack Wu Dao's true body just now? Why did he let Wu Dao's true body leave? Chapter 26-25. Su Zimo did not plan to reveal Master of Six Brahma Heaven's true identity for the time being. On one hand, it was because of Bo Sun's warning. More importantly, Master of Six Brahma Heaven's reputation in the hearts of the immortals in the Nine Heavens immortal realm, not only in the pure land of bliss. If Su Zimo revealed the truth and said that Master of Six Brahma Heaven was Bo Sun, there would be only one outcome for him. He would be regarded as a lunatic with ulterior motives. Countless people would even suspect his motives. They would suspect that he was a member of the demon realm and was here to slander Master of Six Brahma Heaven and sow discord between the two realms. Master of 6 Brahma Heaven did not even have to do anything. Countless crazy believers would step forward and tear him to pieces. Who would believe that he was a level 9 heavenly immortal and suspect master of 6 Brahma Heaven, a benevolent Buddhist emperor who sacrificed himself to save others? Looking at the benevolent master of 6 Brahma Heaven, surrounded by immortals and monks, Su Zimo felt a chill in his heart. The situation in the heavenly realm was getting more and more chaotic. No one knew what would happen in the future. Of course, Su Zimo was slightly relieved that Bo Sun was not without opponents. In this life, Bo Sun was not the only one who had reappeared. There was also a demon emperor who was older than him. Now he was sitting in the demon realm. Even if Bo Sun could wreak havoc in the pure land of bliss, he could only occupy one realm at most. If he wanted to regain control of the demon realm, he would have to face the world devastation demon emperor. At that time, there would be a battle between the two demon emperors. It would be best if both sides suffered great losses. Even if one side was defeated, the other side would suffer great losses. This was a great opportunity for the 9 Heavens Immortal Realm. At that time, the 9 Heavens Immortal Realm would be able to gather strength and suppress the remaining demon emperors. Who was that? At this moment, a furious roar rang out. A powerful aura shrouded the immortals and monks of the two realms. It made their hearts tremble. This was the wrath of an emperor. Su Zimo followed the voice and saw Tai Shao, Immortal Emperor, looking around. His gaze swept past Immortal King Qin Yang and the others. He asked coldly, "Chang Yi and Qin Su are dead. You didn't even see them? Are they all blind?" Immortal King Green Sun and the others lowered their heads, not daring to utter a word. Although they were all immortal kings, and many of them were peerless immortal kings, they still had to obediently bow their heads in front of an immortal emperor. Being reprimanded by the immortal emperor, he didn't even dare to retort. Su Zimo's heart trembled. Prince Qin Su is also dead. Although Qin Su was severely injured by Wu Dao's true body, and his body was destroyed, he still had a strand of Yuan Shen left, which was carried by the Eternal Night Immortal King for protection. Who would have thought that the mysterious expert hidden in the depths of the void would not only kill the Eternal Night Immortal King, but also the Imperial Prince, Qin Su? Su Zimo originally thought that the death of the peerless Immortal King had alarmed Immortal Emperor Tai Shao. Now that he looked at it, it was probably because of Qin Su's death that the Immortal Emperor Tai Shao decided to come out. Of course, there was another reason. When the mysterious expert killed the Eternal Night Immortal King and Imperial Prince Qin Su, he should have also taken the Tai Ching Jade Book. Which one of you has the Tai Ching Jade Book? At this moment, the Immortal Emperor Tai Shao stared at Immortal King Green Sun and the others and asked coldly. Immortal King Green Sun and the other immortal kings were shocked and hurriedly shook their heads. This was no small matter, and they didn't dare to be perfunctory. Immortal King Green Sun said in a deep voice, "Immortal Emperor, Qin Su was severely injured by Araki Takashi of the Demon Domain, and his body was destroyed. Only his Yuan Shun and the Tai Ching Jade Book escaped. In order to protect Qin Su, Taoist Eternal Night took Qin Su's Yuan Shun and the Tai Ching Jade Book with him. Now that Taoist Eternal Night and Qin Su are dead, the Tai Ching Jade Book should have been taken by the mysterious person." Immortal King Qi Ping hesitated for a moment and said, "Immortal Emperor, at that time, I noticed that the mysterious person's methods were a little similar to..." Immortal King Qi Ping wanted to say something but stopped. "Speak." The Immortal Emperor Tai Shao shouted, "It's a little like the methods of the witch race." Immortal King Qi Ping said. Immortal King Green Sun nodded slightly and said, "At that time, in the depths of the void, there was indeed a flash of green light that entered between Immortal King Eternal Night's eyebrows and killed him." The witch race? The Immortal Emperor Tai Shao frowned slightly, and his face was gloomy. If this matter involved an expert from outside the heaven realm, it would be difficult to deal with. Could he rush to the witch world and ask for the person just because of a few words from Immortal King Green Sun and the others? Even if it was really done by an expert from the witch race, he wouldn't be stupid enough to stand up. The most likely possibility was that this matter would be left unsettled. Immortal Emperor Tai Xiao felt a wave of frustration at the thought of this. He only felt a little regretful about the death of Immortal King Eternal Knight. Qin Si's premature death and the loss of the Taiqing Jade Book made him very angry. Immortal King Green Sun and the others also saw the most likely outcome of this matter. Naturally, they could guess the anger in Immortal Emperor Tai Xiao's heart at this time. Zen Master Huiwen couldn't help but say, "In my opinion, the cause of this matter is Araki Takashi of the Demon Realm. The supreme arhat of the Pure Land of Bliss, Shi Wunyan, was killed by Wu Dao's original body. The Buddhist monks naturally hated Wu Dao's original body to the bone. Since there was nothing they could do about the witch world, it was better to let Immortal Emperor Tai Xiao vent his anger on Araki Takashi of the Demon Realm." Zen Master Huiwen said, "If it weren't for Araki Takashi of the Demon Realm coming to the Nine Heavens Immortal Realm to cause trouble, injuring little friend Qin Su, and then chasing after fellow Taoist Eternal Knight, the two of them wouldn't have been ambushed and died." Araki Takashi of the Demon Realm. Immortal Emperor Tai Xiao narrowed his eyes slightly and murmured softly. After a while, Immortal Emperor Tai Xiao said, "Araki Takashi of the Demon Realm has the prison-suppressing cauldron and is hiding in the Avicii Hell. With my methods, I can't do anything to him." Zen Master Huiwen hurriedly said, "Although Araki Takashi is hiding, his Heaven Wasteland sect is still in the Demon Realm. Why don't?" Zen Master Huiwen's meaning was very obvious. He wanted to ask Immortal Emperor Tai Xiao to take action and destroy the Heaven Wasteland sect of the Demon Realm. But before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by a Buddhist chant. Amipa. Six Brahma Heaven Lord shook his head slightly, looked at Zen Master Huiwen, and slowly said, "Huiwen, your killing intent is too strong. If you don't wake up in time, I'm afraid you will be in danger of becoming a demon." Zen Master Huiwen was shocked. Six Brahma Heaven Lord's eyes looked full of wisdom, as if he could see through all his thoughts and intentions. All his thoughts, under the gaze of Six Brahma Heaven Lord, seemed to have nowhere to hide. Zen Master Huiwen was sweating profusely under Six Brahma Heaven Lord's gaze. He hurriedly bowed his head and said, "Thank you for the warning, this little monk knows his mistake." "Good." Six Brahma Heaven Lord nodded slightly. "You must remember, between becoming a Buddha and becoming a demon, you must guard your heart and not fall into the demon path." Zen Master Huiwen repeatedly agreed. Six Brahma Heaven Lord turned his head to look at Immortal Emperor Tai Xiao, nodded slightly and said, "Benefactor, please calm down and listen to me. Although Araki Takashi of the Demon Realm is hiding in the Avicii Hell, it is still unknown whether Emperor Bo-sun is hiding in the Heaven Wasteland sect. What's more, the World Devastator Demon Emperor is guarding the Demon Realm. If Benefactor goes to the Demon Realm and is discovered by the World Devastator Demon Emperor, it will be very difficult to escape unscathed. This matter needs to be considered at length." Chapter 26-26. You're right, fellow Taoist. Immortal Emperor Tai Xiao nodded slightly and replied, "In fact, even without Lord Six Brahma's persuasion, he wouldn't rush to the Demon Realm to destroy the Heaven Baron sect just to vent his anger. The Heaven Baron sect had been able to stand in the Demon Realm for so many years, so they must have something to rely on. Ever since the World Devastation Demon Emperor appeared, he had swept through the demon realm and continued to conquer. But he had never touched the Heaven Baron sect. Of course, it could be explained that the Heaven Baron sect was at the edge of the demon realm, and the World Devastation Demon Emperor didn't care about it. But there was another possibility. Perhaps there was some force or someone behind the Heaven Baron sect that made the World Devastation Demon Emperor afraid. Immortal Emperor Taishao had lived for millions of years, 10 times longer than Zen Master Hui Wen and the other immortal kings. What hadn't he seen? How could Zen Master Hui Wen's intention to kill with a borrowed knife be hidden from him? Since Lord Six Brahma had come forward to persuade him, he didn't insist and went with the flow. There were traces of people from the witch world in today's matter. Immortal Emperor Taijiao's eyes were gloomy. Although he couldn't make trouble for the witch world because of this, he was still prepared to go to the witch world to see if he could find some clues. Immortal Emperor Taishao cupped his hands slightly at Lord Six Brahma, turned around, tore open the void and disappeared. Everyone, let's go. Lord Six Brahma looked at the immortals and monks of the two realms and said with a smile. In the eyes of everyone, although Lord Six Brahma was an imperial emperor, he didn't have the majesty and arrogance of an imperial emperor. He was approachable and not like immortal Emperor Taishao, who always had a condescending attitude. The cultivators thanked him again. Lord Six Brahma nodded slightly. Before leaving, his gaze seemed to have inadvertently swept past Su Zimo's face, then turned and left, disappearing into the horizon. After the two imperial emperors left, the immortals and monks present heaved a sigh of relief. In front of the two imperial emperors, even immortal kings would feel a kind of omnipresent pressure. This was the unique majesty of an imperial emperor. The majesty of an imperial emperor couldn't be offended. Only those who had cultivated to the level of sovereign emperors could be considered the pinnacle of existence in the upper realm. They could rule over the world and rule over billions of living beings. The cultivators of the two regions were originally overjoyed to have escaped with their lives. However, it didn't take long for the joy in everyone's hearts to fade. Their expressions were complicated. The meeting of the Continent of the Nine Clouds had been a complete failure. At the Continent of the Nine Clouds meeting, the True Celestial Ranking List and the Arhat Ranking List were supposed to determine the Peerless True Celestial Ranking List and the Peerless Arhat Ranking List. But he didn't expect that the True Immortal Ranking List and the Arhat Ranking List would all become a wedding dress for someone else. The so-called Supreme True Immortals and Supreme Arhats had also become stepping stones for others, creating the incomparably ferocious name of Araki Takashi of the Devil Domain. Shi Wunyan had just become a Supreme Arhat when he was killed by Araki Takashi with a single punch. For example, the Moonlight Sword Immortal and the Zither Immortal Meng Yao from the Divine Firmament Immortal Realm had also met a tragic end. Not only had Meng Yao lost to the Zither demon of the Heaven Baron sect in the Tao of the Zither, her appearance had also been disfigured and could never be restored. It could be said that Meng Yao had lost everything during the meeting of the Continent of the Nine Clouds. Her glory, her Tao of the Zither, her appearance, these things that had made her proud had all been trampled under the feet of Araki Takashi from the Devil Domain. Meng Yao seemed to have lost her soul. Her expression was blank, and her eyes were empty. She was like a walking corpse, following the crowd of the Mountain and Sea Celestial sect. Originally, she was like a moon surrounded by stars, but now, she was no longer surrounded by people. Even many of the Mountain and Sea Celestial sect's disciples looked disgusted when they saw the hideous scars on her face. They subconsciously distanced themselves from her. The Moonlight Sword Immortal's fate was even worse. She had been hit countless times. Even if she had survived, it would have been a fate worse than death. At the meeting of the Continent of the Nine Clouds, the cultivators of the two regions were in high spirits. The geniuses of the True Immortal Ranking List and the Arhat Ranking List were even more enthusiastic. They hadn't thought that such a beautiful scene would be destroyed in the blink of an eye. At that moment, the cultivators of the two regions were a little depressed. Not to mention them, even all the immortal kings present here felt bitter in their hearts. Celestial King Qin Yang and the others didn't even want to think about what had just happened. The immortals and monks of the two regions, more than 20 peerless celestial kings, and more than 100 ordinary celestial kings, had been defeated by Araki Takashi alone. Among the cultivators of the two regions, there were a few who were feeling very different from the others. Yunju looked relaxed. Mo Qing lowered her head slightly. No one knew what she was thinking, but there was a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. Araki Takashi is such a decisive person. Why didn't he kill me? My 9 palace subtle steps has already reached the 8th level. How could he break it in an instant? Junyu's eyes were still filled with confusion. She didn't understand. Linlei couldn't help but sigh. I didn't expect that in only 2,000 years, Araki Takashi would become stronger than Lang Fengcheng. And he has grown to this extent. Before this, Linlei still had a glimmer of hope that one day, he would be able to challenge Araki Takashi. However, after today, he would no longer have the same thought. If you aren't in a hurry to return to the academy, why don't you take a rest at my place? Immortal Emperor Ling Long transmitted her voice to Su Zimo. I happen to have something to tell you too. Sure. Su Zimo immediately agreed. He said, I'll pay Senior Human Emperor a visit then. Su Zimo told Mo Qing, and followed Immortal Emperor Ling Long, and the others back to the Sengoku Kingdom, in the Qingxiao Immortal Realm. After arriving at the Sengoku Kingdom, Immortal Emperor Ling Long dismissed the cultivators of the Sengoku Kingdom. She then brought Linlei, his sister, and Su Zimo back to the palace of the Sengoku Kingdom. You two should go back and rest. Immortal Emperor Ling Long said to Linlei and Lin Luo. Mother, little sister and I haven't paid father a visit yet. Linlei frowned. He glanced at Su Zimo beside him and murmured in his heart. Why is mother so polite to Su Zimo? You don't have to today. Go and rest. Come back tomorrow. Immortal Emperor Ling Long sent Linlei and his sister away. Then, she said to Su Zimo, Thank you for saving Lei and Luo last time. When he saw that there was no one else around, Su Zimo asked, By the way, how is Senior Human Emperor's injury? Immortal Emperor Ling Long hesitated. She shook her head and sighed. As expected, it didn't work. Su Zimo frowned. When he had given Lin Luo the worryless fruit, he had guessed that the worryless fruit, and the 9 revolving yang pill, might not be enough to heal the human emperor's injury. Immortal Emperor Ling Long, you came here on purpose, right? Asked Su Zimo. Immortal Emperor Ling Long nodded and said, If I hadn't shown up this time and stayed in the Sengoku Kingdom, other people would have known that the War King's injury hadn't healed yet. This time, I showed up at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds. At least, many influential groups wouldn't suspect me. Chapter 26-27. Not long after, Immortal King Ling Long brought Su Zimo to a bedchamber. The bedchamber was filled with dense immortal mist and a strong herbal smell. Through the heavy mist, one could vaguely see a figure sitting cross-legged on the bed cultivating. Although they hadn't seen each other for many years, Su Zimo recognized the human emperor Lin Zhan at first glance. Compared to when he was in Tianhuang mainland, the human emperor's appearance hadn't changed much. However, unlike the peerless and sharp aura he had during the battle on Tianhuang mainland, the human emperor now looked like an ordinary middle-aged man. Lin Zhan closed his eyes and frowned slightly, as if he was in a critical situation and couldn't solve it for the time being. Su Zimo didn't say anything to disturb him. He only waved his hand at Immortal King Ling Long. Immortal King Ling Long nodded apologetically and led Su Zimo to the other side to rest for a while. Avicii Hell. Wu Dao's original body was invincible during the 9 Clouds convention. He was able to form a grotto heaven, suppress the celestials of the 2 regions, and retreat unscathed. It could be said that it was perfect. However, under the Mo Luo mask, Wu Dao's original body's expression was a little serious. He recalled something. Just now, under the divine tree of Builderwood, when he broke through and formed a grotto heaven, he suddenly felt a great danger. At that time, no one on the battlefield could threaten him at all. That sense of danger came without warning and disappeared quickly. Even with his spiritual senses, he couldn't determine the source. At that time, he was surrounded by 19 peerless celestial kings, so he didn't think much. Now that he had calmed down and recalled that fleeting sense of crisis, The martial Dao true body felt a faint sense of unease in his heart. Did it come from the mysterious expert hidden in the void who killed Celestial King Changya? Or from the sixth Brahma Heaven Lord who came later? Or was it some other powerful existence that he couldn't predict? That feeling was too terrifying. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that since Wu Dao's original body was born, he felt such a strong sense of danger for the first time. Even when he faced the world destruction demon emperor, he didn't have such a strong feeling. Wu Dao's original body pondered for a long time in the Avicii hell, but he had no clue. Now that he had transformed into a paradise under the divine skywood tree, his battle prowess had skyrocketed. His martial Dao true body had already decided to head to the great wilderness. Back then, before Daiwa Butian left, she noticed a sentence he had written at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley and praised him. "How bold, he's no weaker than me. I will be waiting for you in the higher realms. I hope that one day, you can shine through the mountains and rivers of the higher realms and meet me again." These were Dai Yu's last words to him. Wu Dao's main body had cultivated to such a level. Although Wu Dao hadn't become a king yet, he was still a king. However, with the help of the true Wu Dao's body, he was able to form a grotto heaven, allowing him to control the power of the grotto heaven realm first. With his current strength, although he had not reached the stage where he could illuminate the mountains and rivers of the upper realm, he was qualified to head to the vast wilderness to look for Dai Yu. However, Wu Dao's main body was not in a hurry to leave. He still had many questions about the Avicii hell, and wanted to find an answer. All these years, he had been cultivating in seclusion in the Avicii hell. He had the prison-suppressing cauldron. Apart from the Avicii hell, he could freely stay in the other smaller hells. He was already familiar with every corner of this hell. However, Wu Dao's main body still could not understand why the Emperor of Avicii had created the Avicii hell. To suppress demons? There were indeed many powerful beings buried in the Avicii hell. However, they were far from the level where the Emperor of Avicii would pay so much attention to them. The true core of the Avicii hell was the deepest Avicii hell. Legend had it that the Avicii hell was formed from the Emperor of Avicii's flesh and blood. What kind of opponent would make the Emperor of Avicii go to such lengths, even sacrificing himself and using his flesh and blood to create a hell to suppress them? What happened back then? Did this matter have anything to do with the legendary demon lord, who had stirred up chaos in the 3,000 realms? All sorts of questions lingered in the mind of Wu Dao's main body. Before heading to the great wilderness, he planned to explore the core of the Avicii hell, the deepest part of the Avicii hell. All the answers might lie in the Avicii hell. Back then, he had been thrown into the Avicii hell by Emperor Bo Sun. He had been trapped and tortured inside. If not for the arrival of Qinglian's true body, Wu Dao's main body would never have been able to escape. Now that he had the prison-suppressing cauldron and could transform into a grotto heaven, his combat strength was enough to suppress peerless immortal kings. He could explore the Avicii hell again. Apart from the prison-suppressing cauldron, he also had a soul lamp. Moreover, the soul lamp in the tomb of Emperor Zongtian had burned many ghost immortals. It had long been filled with oil. Once lit, it would be enough to last him for a long time. Even if he encountered any danger in the Avicii hell, he could retreat at any time with the prison-suppressing cauldron and soul lamp in hand. With that thought, Wu Dao's main body took out the prison-suppressing cauldron and held it in his hand. With a flash, he passed through layers of space and arrived above the Avicii hell. Below him was a giant pitch-black vortex. At the center of it was a door. It was bottomless and emitted a terrifying aura. Behind the door, there seemed to be the cries of ghosts and demonic shadows. The scene of Emperor Bo Sun throwing him into the door of Avicii flashed across his mind. At that time, he was forced to enter the Avicii hell. This time, Wu Dao's main body took the initiative to enter the Avicii hell to find the answer. Wu Dao's main body leaped with the prison-suppressing cauldron. Previously, in the door of Avicii, it felt like countless pale arms were dragging him into the Avicii hell. This time, with the prison-suppressing cauldron in his hand, the pitch-black vortex below him came to a stop. The Avicii demonic chi rapidly dispersed, revealing a passage. After all, the prison-suppressing cauldron, was the emperor weapon of the Emperor Wuji. It was also the key to the Avicii Hell. Wu Dao's main body passed through the door of Avicii and returned to the Avicii Hell. The eerie and terrifying feeling surfaced once again. After entering the Avicii Hell, he lost all his 5 senses and spirit perception. Although he had already grasped the power of the grotto heaven, Wu Dao's main body could not see anything in the Avicii Hell. There was no darkness or light here. Chaos was unknown. He could not sense the passage of time. It was as though he was floating in midair without any support, or sensed the existence of space. Unlike the previous time, he was holding the prison-suppressing cauldron this time round. The endless hellfire that could cause one endless pain did not descend on him. Wu Dao's main body could not sense the direction, and could only walk forward instinctively. The surroundings were silent without any sound. There was not even the sound of his footsteps. After an unknown period of time, Wu Dao's main body still did not discover anything. As he had expected, he did not encounter any danger in the Avicii Hell with the prison-suppressing cauldron. However, he did not gain anything either. Should he continue walking aimlessly or leave? Just as Wu Dao's main body was hesitating, a commotion came from the depths of darkness or chaos to his left. Chapter 26-28. Wu Dao's true body turned around with a solemn expression. He placed the hell-suppressing cauldron in front of him, and his figure flickered in and out of sight. He was prepared to transform into a grotto heaven and release his full strength at any moment. However, Wu Dao's true body relaxed before long. The commotion on the other side was not a living being. It was more like a will. Wu Dao's true body had been in the Avicii Hell for so long, and this was the first time he had sensed the existence of other. Even if it was just a will. No one knew how long the owner of this will had been in the Avicii Hell. After it appeared, it released an intense hostility towards Wu Dao's true body. It tried to shake the Dao heart of Wu Dao's true body, and released all sorts of terrifying scenes in the consciousness of Wu Dao's true body. Some were tempting, some were threatening. Wu Dao's true body stood on the spot motionlessly, allowing the will to cast whatever it wanted. Such tricks posed no threat to Wu Dao's true body at all. It was just a remnant will without any substantial strength, and the methods it could use were limited. Wu Dao's true body had a calm expression. There was no contempt or mockery in his eyes. He was just lamenting. The owner of this will must have been a top-notch expert comparable to a Tharch back in the day. Otherwise, the infernal Tharch would not have sacrificed himself and used his body to create hell to suppress this place. Wu Dao's true body had endured the infernal pain in the Avicii Hell. The so-called infernal pain did not only refer to the infernal pain in space, time and time. There was also the infernal pain. Once one fell into the Avicii Hell, they would immediately suffer the infernal pain without any pause. There was also the infernal pain. From a certain perspective, living beings that fell into the Avicii Hell were almost immortal. Unless the Avicii Great Hell was destroyed, the living beings here would forever be in agony, unable to find relief. There was also the infernal pain. Regardless of whether one fell into the Avicii Hell was a living being with flesh and blood, or just a soul, every inch of the body and soul would suffer the infernal pain. How powerful was this expert, who was comparable to a great emperor back then? However, after falling into the hell of Avicii, and enduring the torment of endless years, only a remnant will was left. Facing Wu Dao's true body, he could only use such low-level tricks. It was truly a pity. When this remnant will saw Wu Dao's true body, holding the prison-suppressing cauldron, it must have thought that he was the successor of the Emperor of Infinity. That was why it was so hostile. However, this remnant will pose no threat to Wu Dao's true body. Who are you? Wu Dao's main body tried asking. However, he realized that when he spoke, there was no sound at all. The other party could not hear him either. Even if the other party really said something, he wouldn't be able to hear it. This was the Avicii Great Hell. What voice? Even divine sense transmissions were useless. Unable to communicate. Because of the appearance of this will, Wu Dao's main body decided to continue exploring. When Wu Dao's main body decided to leave, this remnant will revealed a hint of pleading, wanting Wu Dao's main body to stay. During the endless years, while enduring endless pain, The owner of this will also endured the pain of loneliness. There was no sound, no space, no time, no other life. There was only endless pain and torment. Wu Dao's main body ignored it and continued to move forward. After an unknown period of time, another will came from the depths of hell to his right. Wu Dao's main body could vaguely tell that this will was slightly different from the previous one. However, the same thing was that this will also developed a strong hostility towards Wu Dao's main body. It used some low-level tricks to threaten him. Wu Dao's main body was unmoved and continued to move forward. After a long time, a third will did not appear. After walking for such a long time in the empty hell of Avicii, only 2 wisps of remnant will flickered across the place. Wu Dao's main body did not gain anything after staying here for so long. Even if he encountered 2 remnant wills, he could not obtain any useful information, since both parties could not communicate. The surroundings were endless without light or darkness. Under such circumstances, I'm afraid I won't be able to find any answers, even if I continue walking. Wu Dao's main body sighed gently. Just as he was about to turn and leave, his heart stirred, and he suddenly took out his soul lamp and other items from his storage bag. After transforming into a grotto heaven, Wu Dao's main body could already resist the strong suction force on his essence spirit by touching the soul lamp with his physical body. Wu Dao's main body released an essence spirit flame and lit the soul lamp. The soul lamp lit up, and a ball of light appeared in the hell of Avicii. Light shone accompanied by darkness. Initially, there was no light or darkness in the hell of Avicii. However, with the ignition of the soul lamp, the surrounding chaos turned into darkness and was gradually dispelled. There was a 10 feet wide patch of light around Wu Dao's main body. That bit of light made him feel more at ease. Right then, the flame that was initially burning vertically in the soul lamp suddenly deviated slightly in a certain direction. Wu Dao's main body focused his gaze. It felt as though the flame of the soul lamp was being guided in that direction by some sort of power. In the hell of Avicii, Wu Dao's main body had already lost all sense of direction and could only continue forward. But now that he was guided by the soul lamp, he was invigorated. No matter what, the abnormality of the soul lamp was at least a clue. Taking a deep breath of air, Wu Dao's main body strode in the direction of the soul lamp's flame. After an unknown period of time, Wu Dao's main body gradually slowed down and looked at the ground not far away with a confused expression. Initially, the soul lamp was the only source of light in the hell of Avicii. However, there was another light shining on the ground not far away. Wu Dao's main body walked over and focused his gaze when he got closer. Half of an ancient mirror-like object was buried in the dust on the ground. The light he saw earlier on was refracted by the soul lamp of the ancient mirror. After pondering for a moment, Wu Dao's main body squatted down and retrieved the half of the ancient mirror from the dust. The ancient mirror had been buried in the hell of Avicii for an unknown period of time, and it looked perfectly fine even now. There was a sinister blood color on the surface of the mirror that gave off a sinister feeling. An ancient mirror buried in the hell of Avicii was definitely not an ordinary item. Furthermore, it was a treasure from the epoch of the Empyrean Emperor. Wu Dao's main body propped up the ancient mirror and touched it with his palm. There seemed to be some marks on the back of the ancient mirror. Wu Dao's main body flipped the ancient mirror over. There were 4 words carved on the back of the ancient mirror. Netherworld Treasure Mirror. Wu Dao's main body flipped the ancient mirror over. There were 4 words carved on the back of the ancient mirror. Netherworld Treasure Mirror. Chapter 26-29. Wu Dao's original body tried to release his consciousness and swept it across the netherworld treasure mirror. He only felt that it was a little eerie and cold, but did not find anything else. No matter how he tried, even when he released the power of the heavenly abode, the netherworld treasure mirror did not react at all. Wu Dao's original body stood up and planned to put away the netherworld treasure mirror first, and continued to search in the direction of the soul lamp's flame. However, he suddenly realized that the netherworld treasure mirror could not be placed in his storage bag at all. Although the storage bag was open, there was an unresolvable resistance between it and the netherworld treasure mirror. Wu Dao's original body did not dare to casually throw this unknown ancient mirror into his sea of consciousness. After pondering for a while, Wu Dao's original body put the netherworld treasure mirror into his chest pocket. He held the soul lamp and continued to walk in the direction of the flame. After an unknown period of time, a tall silhouette vaguely appeared in the darkness in front of him. When he got closer, Wu Dao's original body was surprised to find that what stood in front of him was a desolate and lonely ancient city. There was an ancient city in the depths of the Avicii Great Hell. This ancient city had no walls. The entrance of the ancient city was like the bloody mouth of an ancient giant beast. It was deep and dark inside, and the path could not be seen clearly. Wu Dao's original body hesitated for a moment, but he still walked into the ancient city. The ancient city was quiet. There was no sign of life on both sides of the street. However, after entering the ancient city, the despair, pain, and suffocating atmosphere of the Avicii Great Hell seemed to have suddenly disappeared. This ancient city seemed to be a world of its own, completely isolating the inside of the city from the Avicii Great Hell outside. Wu Dao's original body held the hell-suppressing cauldron in his left hand and the soul lamp in his right as he walked along the street. There was nothing on the empty street except for the faint sound of his footsteps. After a while, Wu Dao's original body seemed to have reached the end of the street, and his footsteps gradually slowed down. There was an ancient well at the end of the street in an open space. It seemed a little out of place. Wu Dao's original body looked around and found nothing. Only then did he walk towards the ancient well. By the time he reached the edge of the ancient well, the flame of the soul lamp had returned to its normal state. It was as if this ancient well was the destination of the soul lamp. Wu Dao lowered his head and looked into the ancient well. It was dark and gloomy inside, and there was no sign of life. When his divine sense entered the ancient well, it was like a stone ox entering the sea, disappearing in an instant. Wu Dao's true body leaned forward and slowly sent his soul lamp into the ancient well. He wanted to see if he could find anything. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from behind him. It was very close. "What did you see?" Hiss. Wu Dao's body stiffened, and he felt a chill run down his spine. His mind was greatly shaken. The voice did not belong to the remnant will of the Hell of Avicii. Wu Dao's main body could clearly feel that there was someone standing behind him. A living person. He could even feel the breathing of the person behind him. How could this be? How could there be anyone alive in this ancient city in the depths of the Hell of Avicii? Furthermore, just now, he had checked carefully and found that there was no sign of life in the surroundings, let alone a living person. In fact, he did not even know when the living person arrived. How did the person appear behind him? That voice sounded familiar. However, the appearance of the voice was way too sudden and strange. Wu Dao's main body was shocked and did not think too much about it. His spirit perception did not give him any warning. The best guess was that the person did not have any enmity towards him. However, there was another possibility. The person was strong enough to hide from his spirit perception. Wu Dao's main body did not escape right away. If the person behind him wanted to attack him, there was no need for them to make a sound. He was completely unprepared. Wu Dao's main body turned around slowly and held the hell suppression cauldron and soul lamp horizontally before his chest, fully alert. Even though he was prepared, when he turned around and saw who it was, he was still shocked. His eyes were filled with disbelief. "Senior, it's you." A look of realization flashed through the mind of Wu Dao's main body. It was no wonder that the voice he had heard earlier sounded somewhat familiar. The person standing before him was the long-browed old monk, who was known as the tomb keeper in the backyard of Shura Monastery, on the Grand Taiwei Mountain. Wu Dao's main body did not have much interaction with the old monk. Back then, the two of them had met once. Wu Dao's main body could vaguely sense that this old monk was extraordinary. Later on, Qinglian's main body, Yun Zhu and Mo Qing left the Hell of Avicii and were intercepted by 8 heavenly kings of the Buddhist monasteries. At that time, this old monk was the one who attacked and killed more than half of the 8 heavenly kings of the Buddhist monasteries. To be precise, the old monk did not attack at all. He merely said a single sentence, and a heavenly king of the Buddhist monasteries would die. He merely glanced at a heavenly king of the Buddhist monasteries, and the latter would die on the spot. Of the 8 heavenly kings of the Buddhist monasteries, only 3 managed to escape in time and hid in the Hell of Avicii. They could be considered to have escaped from the hands of the old monk. However, at that time, Wu Dao's main body was guarding the Hell of Avicii, and the 3 heavenly kings were buried in the Hell of Avicii. After that, he had not heard any news about the old monk. He had asked Yun Zhu, but there were no clues. Although the old monk looked like he was at the end of his life and could exhaust his lifespan at any moment, his strength was frighteningly strong. Wu Dao's main body had not expected to see the old monk again in the ancient city of the Hell of Avicii. He relied on the Hell Suppression Cauldron and Soul Lamp to pass through the Hell of Avicii and arrive here. How did the old monk come over? Even imperial lords might not be able to leave alive if they were trapped in the small hell outside, let alone the Hell of Avicii in the middle. Could the old monk be a great emperor? Wu Dao's main body was shocked when that thought flashed through his mind. However, he calmed down before long. There was no way he was a great emperor. According to what he knew, ever since the eternal emperor passed away, no great emperors were born in this generation. If someone had truly attained the Tao and become a great emperor, the news would have spread through the 3,000 worlds. Senior, how did you? Wu Dao's main body was confused. When he saw that the old monk did not have any hostility towards him, he could not help but ask. But before he could finish his words, the old monk suddenly stretched out his skinny hand and pushed it towards his chest. Wu Dao's main body was startled. He watched helplessly as the old monk's skinny palm pushed towards him. However, his body seemed to be out of his control, and he could not move at all. Even with the Hell Suppression Cauldron and Soul Lamp, it was useless. What was the old monk trying to do? Was he trying to kill him? Why? In a flash, countless thoughts flashed through the mind of Wu Dao's main body. Chapter 2630. As thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind, the old monk's skinny palm had already slapped the chest of Wu Dao's true body. Wu Dao's true body could not move, and was prepared to die here. Given the strength of the old monk, even if he had a grotto heaven and a perfected Wu Dao body, he would definitely not be able to withstand that palm strike. However, when the old monk's palm landed, Wu Dao's true body did not feel any pain. To be precise, the old monk merely pushed him gently. At that moment, Wu Dao's true body was standing at the edge of the ancient well. After being pushed by the old monk, he lost control of his body and fell into the dark and sinister ancient well. Wu Dao's true body was devoured by the darkness as he fell into an endless dark abyss. The surrounding ancient city and ancient well seemed to have vanished instantly. The old monk was the only one left. The old monk arrived at the edge of the dark abyss and looked down at the fallen Wu Dao's true body and seemed to be experiencing the corners of the old monk's lips curled up slightly. His wrinkled old face seemed to reveal a mysterious smile. That Wu Dao's original body flashed through the depths of the old monk's murky eyes. But 7 days had actually passed. Wu Dao's true body was completely devoured by the passage of time, and he could not see anything. Seniors, have you heard of the tomb keeper? He lost contact with Qingyan's true body completely. Asked. Green the firmament immortal and immortal King Ling Long thought carefully. The human emperor's chamber, and looked at each other in shrouded confusion. In immortal fog. They shook their heads slowly. Shuddered and clenched his fists had already expected this. Suddenly, Yunju had read with a furious expression and was knowledgeable about the past true body entered the Avicii. But she had never heard of the Qingyan's true body had been. It was reasonable that the human true body and immortal King Ling Long after Wu Dao's true body refine the human emperor. Cauldron. How are your injuries? It was equivalent to him controlling the Avicii hell. In the end, even though the human emperor's current injuries were caused by the calamity just entered that befell the human race, bodies still maintained a connection. The human emperor had forcefully descended to the original body experienced. Lin Zhan waved his hand and smiled casually. True body was clear. I've recovered a little with your 9 revolutions. Therefore, return elixir. When Wu Dao's original body was pushed into the dark abyss by the old monk, has also returned to the grotto heaven realm. Lost her composure. My life is not in danger. He had completely lost the human emperor didn't say it explicitly, body, but Su Zimo's expression turned ugly. His battle strength, Wu Dao's true body had just recovered to the grotto heaven realm, and the real Wu Dao's body it would be a small grotto heaven. Even the direction of Wu Dao's next level of cultivation had been deduced. The human emperor smiled and said, "He never imagined that he would actually encounter such suffering from these calamity in the upper world all these years, and his fate was unknown." Su Zimo had not expected to bump into the old really guarding the tomb in the depths of the less than 10,000 years. More than that, your true body he did not expect the old monk to push him into the dark abyss without a second word. As long as there's a suitable opportunity, Su Zimo felt something strange the fruit of Dao at any time looked over and entered the true self realm. The human emperor Lin Zhan with the title immortal King Ling Long were looking at him with worried expressions. You caused a commotion was focused on Wu Dao's original body. Immortal domain. Only now did the battle in the 9 Clouds immortal domain and recall that he was in the human emperor's chamber and become famous. Su Zimo from Tianhuang region. It's a pity that I couldn't see it with my own eyes. Senior human emperor. It's a pity. Su Zimo suppressed his emotions, took a deep breath and bowed. Lin Zhan nodded Zimo greatly and looked gratified. King Ling Long all these years, he had been suffering from injuries. Something serious had happened to Su Zimo. Period was filled with internal and external troubles. He was always worried and almost never smiled. Right even now, if he told them about this matter, was the happiest thing for him in recent immortal years. King Ling Long, on the one hand, could not do anything. It was rare to see an old friend even an imperial emperor could not come out of the Avicii felt very close to him. Let alone on the other hand, emperor and immortal he was also very gratified who had to see the juniors of Tianhuang. How long have I been here? Quickly, Su Zimo noticed that the human emperor Lin Zhan back then had already woken up from his recuperation and forcefully realized that a lot of time had passed. It's been 7 days. He had used Su Zimo's body to fight against the emperors of the various races. This process was equivalent to leaving his Dao to Su Zimo. Before he left, he even passed the position of the human emperor to this young man. Even the human emperor Lin Zhan didn't expect that young man to be so famous in the heaven realm after ascending to the upper worlds. Bring me wine. Speaking of which, the human emperor waved his hand. Immortal King Ling Long smiled and said proudly, "I've already prepared it. Today count me in. Let's drink to our heart's content." It's a pity that Brother Feng is not here. The human emperor shook his head slightly and said with a regretful tone. Immortal King Ling Long took out 3 jars of wine and left one for the human emperor and Su Zimo. Chapter 2631. After the three of them drank to their heart's content, Su Zimo finally calmed down a little and gradually let go of the matter of Wu Dao's original body. It was useless even if he kept thinking about it. Back then, Wu Dao's original body had fallen into the Avicii Great Hell and lost contact with him once. However, at that time, the prison-suppressing cauldron was in the hands of Qinglian's original body. After Qinglian's original body entered the Avicii Great Hell, she re-established contact with Wu Dao's original body and rescued Wu Dao's original body. This time, the prison-suppressing cauldron and the soul lamp were in the hands of Wu Dao's original body. Given the current cultivation level of Qinglian's original body, entering the Avicii Great Hell was a dead end, let alone rescuing Wu Dao's original body. The only thing that made Su Zimo feel slightly relieved was that before Wu Dao's original body fell into the dark abyss, the old monk's face had revealed a mysterious smile. That smile did not seem to be hostile or murderous, but seemed to have a deeper meaning. Last time, when he lost contact with Wu Dao's original body, he at least knew where Wu Dao's original body had gone. This time, he didn't even know where Wu Dao's original body had gone. Moreover, this time, there was most likely no one who could help Wu Dao's original body. Whether Wu Dao's original body could survive and return safely would depend on his own fate and fortune. When talking about Feng Cantillon and the Heaven Baron sect, it was inevitable to talk about the situation in the demon domain. Lin Zhan muttered, because of the existence of the world devastator demon emperor, the demon domain is probably not a good place. The Heaven Baron sect may not be able to gain a firm foothold in the demon domain in the future. Immortal King Linglong also said, it is said that Emperor Bo Sun has also reappeared in this world. In the future, these two demon emperors will definitely compete in the demon domain. The Heaven Wasteland sect should find a way out to avoid being involved in the war between the two demon emperors. At the mention of Emperor Bo Sun and the world devastation demon emperor, Su Zimo's heart jolted as he thought of a question that had been buried deep in his heart for a long time. He asked, legend has it that the world devastation demon emperor was an emperor realm expert tens of millions of years ago. How did he survive until now? After all, the human emperor and fairy Linglong were both immortal kings. They were far more knowledgeable about the strength of the god monarchs than he was. Immortal King Linglong said, regardless of whether it's the great monarch or the monarch, the difference in lifespan isn't that great. Almost all of them have a lifespan of around 10 million years. In the records, only the longevity great monarch managed to live for 20 million years. Although the world devastator devil emperor is powerful, it is impossible for him to have lived for tens of millions of years. After a short pause, Immortal King Linglong said, I'm more inclined to believe that the world devastation demon emperor has already fallen tens of millions of years ago. However, in this life, he has used some kind of heaven-defying method to resurrect himself. Resurrection from the dead. Hearing these words, Su Zimo frowned slightly and fell into deep thought. He had a feeling that he seemed to have overlooked an extremely important piece of information. Immortal King Linglong suddenly asked, Zimo, before you ascended other than us, did you know any other experts from the upper world? Experts from the upper world? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. If one were to say that before he ascended, other than the human emperor and his wife, only Daiyu was left. I do know one. Su Zimo nodded and didn't hide anything. He said, however, she is not in the heaven realm, but in the great wasteland domain. Back then, when Senior Human Emperor came to the lower world, I even asked Senior Human Emperor about her, but I didn't find anything. Lin Zhan smiled and said, after all, I am only an immortal king from the green firmament immortal realm. I have only been to the great wasteland domain once, so I don't know much about it. There are many experts that I have never heard of. Back in the lower world, Su Zimo had asked the human emperor about Daiyu's name. Later on, Daiyu had told him that even in the upper world, there were no more than 5 people who knew that her name was Daiyu. Daiyu had also told him that if he were to ask someone else, he could ask Xuedai from the Great Wasteland domain. At the thought of this, Su Zimo asked again, Senior Human Emperor, Have you heard of Shui Dai from the Great Wasteland Domain? Hearing this, not only the human Emperor Lin Zhan, but even immortal King Ling Long's expression changed. Shui Dai. Lin Zhan's expression was solemn as he asked, Shui Dai Demon Empress? Should be, Su Zimo said. Before King Yunyo's clone died, he had begged Dai Yu for mercy and said something about Shui Dai. Empress. He must be talking about the Shui Dai Demon Empress. Immortal King Ling Long nodded and said, There is only one Shui Dai from the Great Wasteland. She is very famous in the Great Wasteland Domain, right? Su Zimo probed. In fact, he could roughly guess it from the human emperor and immortal King Ling Long's reactions. Not only in the Great Wasteland Domain. Human Emperor Lin Zhan shook his head slightly and said, The Shui Dai Demon Empress is famous in the entire upper world. She is one of the most powerful imperial emperors. The experts in the upper world might not have heard of the imperial emperors of the various celestial domains, but they have definitely heard of the Shui Dai Demon Empress. I once heard from immortal Emperor Qing Shao that the Shui Dai Demon Empress is the closest to becoming a great emperor among the imperial emperors in the upper world. She is also the one who has the highest chance of becoming a great emperor. She is so powerful. Su Zimo was shocked and happy at the same time. He had long imagined that Dai Yu would be extraordinary in the upper world, but he did not expect her to be so powerful. Immortal King Ling Long said, The Butterfly Clan is born weak. Even though the Emperor Butterfly Clan has appeared, they are still not comparable to the other powerful clans. However, the rise of the Shui Dai Demon Empress has completely changed the status of the Butterfly Clan in the upper world. Because of her, the other clans do not dare to underestimate the Butterfly Clan. Immortal King Ling Long's tone was full of admiration when she mentioned this. Her calm eyes were filled with ripples. Su Zimo's heart was stirred as well. He could almost see the figure in a blood-red robe in front of his eyes. She was invincible in the Tianhuang mainland and killed the entire sorcerer tribe with a single palm strike. She was peerless. He couldn't imagine how magnificent Dai Yu's past was. Immortal King Ling Long continued. What's more, the Shui Dai Demon Empress is a woman. She is as talented as a man. I admire her very much. I only hope that I can reach 1/10 of her level in the future. Su Zimo burst out laughing. Judging from Immortal King Ling Long's reaction, she obviously saw Dai Yu as her role model and goal. Besides, Immortal King Ling Long had never seen Dai Yu before. Dai Yu's influence in the upper world was obvious. Su Zimo then told them about how Dai Yu had come to Tianhuang mainland with the help of the rare phenomenon of her bloodline, resolved the calamity of the sorcerer tribe, and left after mending the sky. It was the first time the human emperor and immortal King Ling Long had heard about this. They were even more shocked. Lin Zhan said, When I came to the lower world by force, I realized that I might leave a huge threat to Tianhuang mainland. I didn't expect it to be her. Chapter 2632. Immortal King Ling Long said with a smile, I didn't know there was such an expert behind you. It seems like the information came from the blood butterfly demonic monarch too. Su Zimo didn't quite understand what she was talking about. He instinctively asked, What information? Immortal King Ling Long said, When you were ascending, the Cloud Underworld King tried to kill you. I was able to arrive in time, because I received a piece of information in advance. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to deduce that you would encounter a calamity, let alone the time and place of the calamity. Su Zimo's expression changed, and he gradually narrowed his eyes. Immortal King Ling Long didn't notice it. She sighed softly and said, Sigh, it's a pity that Brother Zhan was injured. Although I arrived in time, I was still a step too late, and caused you to lose one of your true bodies. I don't know why the blood butterfly demonic monarch didn't appear personally. If she did, she would have crushed the Cloud Underworld King to death with just a finger. Lin Zhan shook his head and said, I heard that the situation in the Great Desolation Domain is quite chaotic. The flames of war are endless, and there are a few demonic monarchs with terrifying strength. I don't know why, but even the blood butterfly demonic monarch was severely injured. The 12 demonic monarchs under her command suffered heavy casualties, and more than half of the territory under her rule was divided. In recent years, the blood butterfly demonic monarch returned with a strong momentum, but she hasn't completely recovered the lost territory. I guess she can't split herself up. The two of them were talking to themselves. Suddenly, they realized that Su Zimo was still silent, and his expression was a little ugly. Lin Zhan thought that Su Zimo was worried about the situation in the Great Desolation Domain, so he comforted him. Zimo, don't worry. With the blood butterfly demonic monarch's current strength, no one can hurt her. Su Zimo wasn't worried about Daiyu. Just like the human emperor said, with Daiyu's strength, he didn't need to worry at all. Moreover, he wasn't strong enough now. Even if he went to the Great Desolation Domain, he wouldn't be of much help. He was thinking about something else. Immortal King Ling Long had just told him that she was able to arrive in time because she received a piece of information. Immortal King Ling Long thought the information came from Daiyu. However, based on Su Zimo's understanding of Daiyu, this was definitely not Daiyu's doing. Daiyu was a proud woman who didn't want to owe anyone a favor. Why would she send a message to the human emperor and Immortal King Ling Long to ask them for help? If Daiyu wanted to save him, there was no need for her to go in such a big circle. This wasn't Daiyu's style. This style reminded Su Zimo of something else. When he killed Duke Yuanzhua in Juele City and searched his soul, he saw a scene in Duke Yuanzhua's memory. Originally, Commandery Prince Yuanzhua did not know where he was. It was because she had suddenly received a letter that she knew he was participating in the Immortal Sect's general election. Moreover, she was able to recognize him after he had changed his appearance. The styles of these two matters were too similar. That was the first thing Su Zimo thought of. At the same time, it also confirmed a speculation in his heart. However, this speculation was even more terrifying than he had imagined. Su Zimo had once thought that perhaps the moment he arrived in the divine firmament immortal realm, a pair of invisible hands had appeared behind him, manipulating his fate and guiding his every move. Now, Su Zimo suddenly realized that this pair of hands might have already started planning when he ascended. Zimo, what's on your mind? Immortal King Ling Long asked again when she saw Su Zimo's expression was not very good. Su Zimo said slowly, Senior Ling Long, the information you received should not be from the Blood Butterfly Demon Monarch. Not the Blood Butterfly Demon Monarch? Immortal King Ling Long frowned slightly and asked, Then who is it? Su Zimo took a deep breath. He did not hide anything from the human emperor and Immortal King Ling Long, and told them everything that had happened in the divine firmament immortal realm. He told them how he had offended the Duke of Yuanzhua, participated in the Immortal Sect's selection, and finally joined the Qingquan Academy. After hearing this, Immortal King Ling Long's expression turned serious. She could clearly see the problem behind it. Lin Zhan found it hard to believe. He frowned and said, Could it be that someone had already started planning when he ascended? What's his plan? The complete creation Qinglian. Immortal King Ling Long said slowly. The creation Qinglian is the only one in the world. It's the most mysterious treasure with unimaginable potential. Since ancient times, it has been extremely difficult for the creation Qinglian to grow. In this life, the Qinglian and Su Zimo have merged into one. The conditions to grow are even stricter. Once Su Zimo is suppressed and imprisoned in advance, no matter what method is used, as long as Su Zimo is unwilling, he won't be able to mature to the 12th stage no matter what. The best way is to give Su Zimo enough opportunities and allow him to cultivate and grow on his own. When he grows to the 12th stage, we can finally take action and pluck him. Only then will we be able to obtain the greatest benefits. Immortal King Ling Long deduced many things from Su Zimo's description, and these things happened to coincide with Su Zimo's speculation. Su Zimo was still unwilling to believe it, because this speculation would eventually lead to one person, the Patriarch of the Academy. If not for this speculation, the Qingquan Academy and the Patriarch of the Academy had saved Su Zimo's life before. During the Immortal Sect's selection, if it weren't for Yang Ruox's persistence and senior sister Emo Qing's timely appearance, he would have been killed by zither immortal Mingyao. It was also because of the Qingquan Academy that he was able to temporarily escape the threat of the Great Jin Celestial Nation. Later on, when he obtained the first place on the Earth board and returned to the Qianquan Academy, he suddenly encountered an inexplicable assassination attempt. At that time, it was the Patriarch of the Academy who personally took action and resolved it. Su Zimo was still unable to determine whether the target of that assassination attempt was him or someone else. But no matter what, the Patriarch of the Academy had indeed saved them. After that, he condensed the 10th step of the Tao Heart Ladder. The Patriarch of the Academy appeared and accepted him as an unnamed disciple. He even gave him a teleportation talisman. It was also because of this teleportation talisman that he was able to bring Momo back to the Qianquan Academy from the chaotic battle in Langfeng City. Later on, he went to Juele City alone and burned it to the ground, killing many heaven immortals, and even Duke Yuanzhua, which alarmed the immortal kings of the great Jin celestial nation. At that time, it was the Patriarch of the Academy who appeared and resolved the matter. After that incident, the Patriarch of the Academy had talked to him and did not hide that he already knew the secret of Qinglian. It was because of that conversation that Su Zimo's suspicion of the Patriarch of the Academy decreased greatly. If the Patriarch of the Academy was really concerned about his Qinglian true body, why would he be honest with him? Later on, at the Divine Firmament Immortal meeting, the Patriarch of the Academy had even sent a message to Immortal King Qin Yang to resolve the doubts of the perfected immortals. The Patriarch of the Academy had done too much to him. The person that Su Zimo should not be suspicious of the most was the Patriarch of the Academy. Chapter 2633. However, all the clues pointed to the Patriarch of the Academy, or rather, someone from the Qianquan Academy. During the immortal sex selection, Su Zimo's initial choice was not the Qianquan Academy, but the Mountain and Sea Immortal sect. However, due to the appearance of Duke Yuanzhua and Zither Immortal Mengyao, there was a huge change in the immortal sex selection. In the end, it was Yang Ruox's persistence and senior sister Mo Qing's appearance that allowed him to enter the Qianquan Academy. The whole process was full of uncertainty and coincidences. If there was really such a person behind the scenes, it meant that this person had already deduced all the coincidences and predicted the final direction of the matter. What kind of intelligence was this? Moreover, after the Patriarch of the Academy talked to Su Zimo asked senior sister Mo Qing about her appearance. According to senior sister Mo Qing, it was because of the 8th elder of the Academy that she rushed to the immortal sex selection. Who was the 8th elder of the Academy? What was his role in all this? Could it be the Patriarch of the Academy? Su Zimo looked at Immortal King Ling Long and asked softly. Immortal King Ling Long remained silent. This matter was very important. After all, the Patriarch of the Academy was Su Zimo's master and had saved Su Zimo's life. She could not make wild guesses without evidence. I'm not sure if it's the Patriarch of the Academy. Immortal King Ling Long pondered and said. But the Patriarch of the Academy is able to calculate the heavenly secrets, fate, people's hearts, and karma. He does have the ability to set up such a trap. This trap was no small matter. It was not only targeting Su Zimo, but also Duke Yuanzhua, the great Jin immortal nation, Yang Ruoxu, Zither immortal Mengyao, painting immortal Mo Qing. There was even immortal King Ling Long and immortal King Yinyu. Since Su Zimo started cultivating, everyone he saw could be a chess piece in this trap. Immortal King Ling Long said. Although I'm also good at deduction, I'm not as good as the Patriarch of the Academy when it comes to calculating the heavenly secrets and fate. At the very least, with my ability, I definitely cannot deduce the time and place of your ascension. Su Zimo nodded. The 9th step of the Qianquan Academy's Tao Heart Ladder was called the Step of Wisdom. It was condensed by the Academy Patriarch. He had felt the will of the Patriarch of the Academy when he had reached the 9th step. The impact on one's Tao heart was indeed extremely shocking. In the end, he was able to pass the 9th step and condense the 10th step of the Tao Heart Ladder because of the resonance between the two true bodies and the descent of Wu Dao's will. The Patriarch of the Academy was known to have a flawless plan, and it was not a lie. Immortal King Ling Long suddenly asked. I heard from Luo that back in Langfeng City, You had unintentionally used the 9 palaces' subtle steps. Where have you seen this kind of footwork before? Back then, when Wu Dao's true body underwent the tribulation, there were several humanoid heavenly tribulations that descended. Among them, there was a black-robed woman who held a tortoise shell in one hand and a horsetail whisk in the other. Su Zimo did not know why immortal King Ling Long suddenly mentioned this, but he still nodded and did not hide it. Immortal King Ling Long's eyes lit up after hearing Su Zimo's description. Su Zimo continued, the black-robed woman's strength was terrifying. She had once used this mysterious footwork. It was extremely profound and left a deep impression on me. Later on in Langfeng City, I had a sudden flash of inspiration and accidentally released it. As I thought. Immortal King Ling Long murmured softly. She then asked with a smile, do you know who the black-robed woman is? I don't. Su Zimo shook his head. Immortal King Ling Long said, the era of the black-robed woman might be a few billion years ago, or even a few billion years ago. Regardless, she should be the oldest martial monarch in the records of the upper realm. Another martial monarch? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Previously, Demoness Ji had told him that the white-robed woman holding a longsword whom Wu Dao's main body had seen during his 10th tribulation was a martial monarch in the past. The 9 Netherworld Emperor. If the black-robed woman was also a martial monarch, it meant that the martial monarchs that Wu Dao's main body had seen during his tribulation were all martial monarchs who had once left traces of their Dao in the upper realm. Immortal King Ling Long added, the black-robed woman you saw was the 9 Heavens mystic fairy emperor. She had once left behind a Dao inheritance in the upper realm. It was a forbidden secret scripture called the Art Repository. Forbidden secret scriptures were extremely rare. Only martial monarchs could leave behind a forbidden secret scripture. For example, although Bo Sun and the world-destroying demon monarch were powerful, their demon pursuit scriptures and world-destroying demon scriptures were only on par with forbidden secret scriptures at most. They had yet to reach the level of forbidden secret scriptures. The Art Repository is all-encompassing. Divination, geomancy, numerology, physiognomy, dream divination, fortune-telling, astrology, astronomical phenomena, talismans. There's nothing it doesn't cover. There are 3 chapters in the Art Repository. The first is Tai. The other 2 are Chimen Dunjia and Lurin Divine Lesson. Back then, the headmaster of the academy and I received this opportunity at the same time. We were chosen by the Tao of the 9 Heavens Xian Nu Empress and received different inheritances. The headmaster of the academy received the art of divination, while I received the Lurin Divine Lesson. In terms of deducing the fate of the heavens and attacking techniques, the Chimen Duanjia is superior. The 9 Palace subtle steps is hidden in the Lurin Divine Lesson. Hearing this, Su Zimo was enlightened. No wonder immortal King Ling Long would suddenly mention this. It turned out that she had such a relationship with the Academy Patriarch. The reason why the Academy Patriarch was superior to her in divination was because he had received the Chimen Dunjia from the Art Repository. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly asked, Senior, you said there are 3 chapters in the Art Repository. Who received the Tai inheritance? According to immortal King Ling Long, Tai was the first of the 3 chapters in the Art Repository. It should be even more mysterious. Immortal King Ling Long said, the Tai Dao has a special origin. It wasn't passed down. Neither the Academy Patriarch nor I received it. After a slight pause, immortal King Ling Long suddenly took out an ancient tortoise shell from her storage bag and handed it to Su Zimo. She said, the tortoise shell you saw in the hands of the 9 Heavens mystic fairy empress should look like this, right? Su Zimo took a closer look and nodded. The size of the tortoise shell, and even the patterns on it, were exactly the same as the one he saw in the black-robed woman's hand. It seemed like the weapon of the 9 Heavens mystic fairy emperor had been passed down and was obtained by immortal King Ling Long. At this moment, a thought flashed across Su Zimo's mind. He recalled the other weapon of the 9 Heavens mystic fairy emperor, the jade-handled horsetail whisk. The horsetail whisk was exactly the same as the Tai horsetail whisk he had. The Tai horsetail whisk had the word Tai The art repository also had the chapter Tai. Was there a connection between the two? Chapter 2634. Immortal Emperor Linglong smiled and said, "If I'm not mistaken, the Tai horsetail whisk in the hands of the Nine Heavens mystic fairy empress should be with you, right?" "That's right." Su Zimo did not hide the truth. He asked straightforwardly, "Senior, is there any connection between the Tai horsetail whisk and the Tai of the art repository?" "Yes." Immortal Emperor Linglong gave an affirmative answer before asking again, "Did you find any secret scriptures when you obtained the Tai horsetail whisk?" "There is indeed a scripture called the Yin Yang Talisman Scripture. The two scriptures only have around 600 words in total," Su Zimo said. "However, the Yin Yang Talisman Scripture is full of strange runes. I can't understand a single word." To be precise, the Yin Yang Talisman Scripture was an inherited memory that Su Zimo obtained when he was sorting out the heavenly secrets on the 9th step of the Tao Heart Ladder. Su Zimo thought of a possibility. He could not help but ask, "Is the Yin Yang Talisman Scripture the Tai of the art repository?" Immortal Emperor Linglong smiled and said, "Yes and no." Su Zimo was a little confused. Immortal Emperor Linglong said, "The Nine Heavens mystic fairy empress once obtained the creation Qinglian and nurtured it to the 12th grade. That's why she has the Tai horsetail whisk. Of course, she also obtained the Yin Yang Talisman Scripture." Immortal Emperor Linglong's words revealed another piece of information. The creation Qinglian was extremely ancient. It already existed during the era of the Nine Heavens mystic fairy empress. Immortal Emperor Linglong added, "As a matter of fact, the last two scriptures of the art repository, the Qimen Duanjia and the Lurin Divine Lesson, were actually created by the Nine Heavens mystic fairy empress herself. Meanwhile, the Tai of the art repository is a Tao art that the Nine Heavens mystic fairy empress comprehended through the Yin Yang Talisman Scripture. The scripture only reached the level of a forbidden scripture after incorporating Tai into the art repository." Su Zimo pondered for a moment before he asked probingly, "Senior, are you saying that the Yin Yang Talisman Scripture is even stronger than Tai?" "Of course." Immortal King Linglong nodded and said, Different people might gain different insights after reading the Yin Yang Talisman scripture. According to what the Nine Heavens Xian Nu Empress said, although the Yin Yang Charm scripture only has over 600 words, it contains all the mysteries of heaven and earth. Being able to comprehend a secret technique from it would bring endless benefits. Even the oldest recorded Nine Heavens mystic fairy emperor had such a high evaluation of the Yin Yang Charm scripture. Then what was the background of Qinglian, the creator of the Yin Yang Charm scripture? Su Zimo was secretly speechless. His mind was floating, and he was unable to accept such a huge piece of information. After a while, he gradually calmed down and took out a piece of white paper from his storage bag, preparing to write down the complete Yin Yang Charm scripture. "What are you doing?" Su Zimo had just finished writing a few runes when immortal King Ling Long hurriedly stopped him. Su Zimo said, "I don't recognize the strange runes on the Yin Yang Charm scripture. I'm going to write them down. I hope you can give me some advice." Immortal King Ling Long said seriously, "You have to think carefully. Once you write down this secret technique, I will naturally see it." Su Zimo smiled and said, "Seniors, both of you have saved my life before. It's not a big deal to write this Yin Yang Talisman scripture. It would be best if you could recomprehend the Tai chapter from this secret technique." In fact, when Su Zimo stood on the 9th step of the Taoist heart ladder in the Qianquan Academy, he realized that the patriarch of the academy should know this strange rune. But deep in his heart, he always had a trace of vigilance against the patriarch of the academy. Therefore, from the beginning to the end, he had never mentioned this to the patriarch of the academy, nor had he asked the patriarch of the academy about the strange runes on the Yin Yang Charm scripture. But Su Zimo naturally did not have any doubts about the human emperor couple. "All right." Immortal King Ling Long nodded in agreement when she saw Su Zimo had made up his mind. She was slightly excited too. After all, this legendary scripture was of utmost importance to her. As Su Zimo had mentioned, if she could comprehend the Tai secret technique from it, it would greatly improve her strength. Book Bagnet soon. Su Zimo recorded all the strange runes of the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra on the piece of white paper based on his memory, and handed it to immortal King Ling Long and the human emperor. Lin Zhan waved his hand and said with a wry smile, "What kind of nonsense is this? It's too confusing. I can't understand it." "It's indeed this kind of runes." Immortal King Ling Long murmured with a stern look. "What kind of runes are these? Which race did they come from?" Su Zimo asked. "I'm not sure." Immortal King Ling Long shook her head and said, "It was my first time seeing these runes when I was receiving the succession of the Nine Heavens Empress. These runes don't look like the runes of a certain race. They look more like the runes of an ancient civilization, or even..." Immortal King Ling Long suddenly paused before she said slowly, "It might even be from the Great Thousand World." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He did not know much about the Great Thousand World. If immortal King Ling Long's speculation was true, the Yin Yang Charm scripture had a great background. Immortal King Ling Long quickly converted the strange runes of the secret technique into modern runes with the help of the succession of the Nine Heavens Empress. Su Zimo read the runes one by one. Observing the Tao of the heavens and carrying out the heavens is all there is to it. There are 5 thieves in the heavens, those who see them prosper. The 5 thieves are in the heart, and they are executed by the heavens. The universe is in the hand, and all transformations are in the body. Every sentence seemed to contain the secrets of the heavens and earth, and the principles of the great Tao. However, Su Zimo could not figure out anything in a short time. The Yin Yang Charm scripture only had around 600 words. He quickly skimmed through it. Suddenly, Su Zimo's expression changed as he saw a paragraph in the Yin Yang Charm scripture. He subconsciously read it out. "When the heavens emit killing intent, the stars move. When the earth emits killing intent, dragons and snakes rise. When the man emits killing intent, the heavens and earth are turned upside down." This, Su Zimo was shocked. He was too familiar with these 3 paragraphs. These 3 sentences were the profundities of the 3 great sword arts. Su Zimo suddenly asked, "Senior, have you heard of someone from the sword realm who obtained the creation Qinglian?" "Yes, there is. Immortal King Linglong nodded and said, "It's said that this person nurtured the creation Qinglian to the 11th grade. This person is most famous for creating the 3 great sword arts and comprehending the supreme divine skills, which made him famous in the 3,000 worlds." Su Zimo nodded. There was no mistake. In other words, this expert from the sword world had once obtained the Yin-Yang talisman scripture and comprehended the 3 great sword techniques from this secret scripture. No wonder Immortal King Linglong said that different people would comprehend different arts after reading the Yin-Yang charm scripture. Chapter 2635. This secret scripture. Human Emperor Lin Zhan looked at the white paper. Immortal King Linglong had already translated more than 600 words. His expression was solemn, and a hint of shock flashed across his eyes. Su Zimo was now a stage 9 heaven immortal. With his current cultivation level, even if he saw the Yin-Yang talisman scripture, it would be difficult for him to comprehend anything from it. However, the human emperor was different. He had already condensed a grotto heaven and become an immortal king. With the human emperor's talent and the knowledge and eyesight of an immortal king, he could see many mysteries from these 600 words. Although there are only 600 words, every word contains the truth of the great Tao. The more you study it, the more you can feel the essence of it. Lin Zhan looked at Immortal King Linglong and sighed. No wonder you said that this Yin-Yang talisman scripture doesn't seem to be something from the upper world. Instead, it might come from the greater world. I'm afraid that only the legendary greater world can give birth to such an exquisite Tao technique. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat, and he asked, Senior Human Emperor, when you forcefully descended to the lower world back then, you were created by the laws of heaven and earth. Will this Yin-Yang talisman scripture be of any help to your injuries? I'm afraid it's not just a help, Lin Zhan said in a deep voice. If I can comprehend something from it, not only will my injuries be healed, but it will also be an unimaginable opportunity for me. That's great, Su Zimo said with a smile. Immortal King Linglong was also delighted. In fact, this Yin-Yang talisman scripture was more helpful to the human emperor's injuries than the 9 revolutions soul return pill and the worryless fruit. The human emperor's injuries were caused by the laws of heaven and earth. Only by comprehending the mysteries of the laws of heaven and earth could one's primordial spirit be healed. Actually, There's another reason why I speculate that the yin-yang talisman scripture came from the greater world. Immortal King Ling Long looked at Su Zimo and said, because according to the inheritance information that the Academy Patriarch and I obtained back then, we can roughly deduce that Qinglian, who gave birth to the yin-yang talisman scripture, most likely came from the greater world. This conjecture coincided with Su Zimo's earlier thoughts. Immortal King Ling Long continued, many people in the upper world have heard of creation Qinglian, the one and only existence in the world. But in reality, almost no one knows the true origins of creation Qinglian. Immortal King Ling Long knew this, because she had received the inheritance of the 9 heavens Xian Envy Empress. Xian Envy Empress of the 9 heavens had once obtained Qinglian and nurtured it to maturity. But the 9 heavens mystic fairy empress was too far away. Apart from Immortal King Ling Long, who had received her legacy, the rest of the people knew nothing about the 9 heavens mystic fairy empress past. Qinglian of creation is extremely difficult to cultivate. As far as I know, only the 9th heaven Xian Envy Empress has managed to cultivate it to the 12th grade. Immortal King Ling Long continued, therefore almost everyone in the upper world underestimated Qinglian of creation. They only thought that it was a mutated spirit plant from the upper world. There were many mutated spirit plants in the upper world, such as the black frost plum tree of the divine firmament immortal realm, the immortal peach tree of the jade firmament immortal realm, the immortal willow of the green firmament immortal realm, and so on, including the divine tree of creation in the center of the heaven realm. They all belong to the category of mutated spirit plants. Thinking of this, although Qinglian of creation was rare, it was still within the scope of everyone's understanding. Lin Zhan also nodded and said, if someone knew that Qinglian of creation came from the great wide world, I'm afraid the person who attacked you wouldn't be King Yunyu. At that time, all the great celestial emperors might be tempted. Su Zimo nodded. He knew in his heart that the human emperor was not exaggerating at all. Not to mention Qinglian of creation. Even if this yin-yang talisman scripture was released, it would probably attract countless great celestial emperors to kill and snatch it. In fact, over the years of cultivation, as Qinglian's true body continued to grow, Su Zimo had gradually discovered the various phenomena of Qinglian's true body. The few powerful treasures that were derived from it were only one of them. Even in terms of bloodline, Qinglian of creation suppressed all living beings. Back at the bottom of the Blood Fiend Lake in the Shura battlefield, Qinglian's true body could even devour the bones of the holy beast, White Tiger. Facing a god like the divine tree of creation that had lived for countless years, Qinglian's true body had no intention of bowing down. She could even forcefully seize the vitality and power of the divine tree of creation. In fact, back when he was in Tianhuang mainland, Dayu had told him that the potential of Qinglian's true body might surpass that of the dragon phoenix's true body. It was only in these years that Su Zimo was truly certain. If they were at the same cultivation realm, the current Qinglian's true body could suppress the dragon phoenix's true body. Be it in terms of essence spirit, bloodline, physique or many divine powers and secret skills, Qinglian's true body had already surpassed the dragon phoenix's true body. But now, Qinglian's true body had yet to grow to its peak. Immortal King Ling Long said, although the taboo dragon phoenix is strong and is considered a top race, it's extremely rare. However, it's not the only one. Back when you ascended, you encountered a calamity, and your dragon phoenix's true body was destroyed. Actually, it wasn't a huge loss for you. Everyone thinks that the foundation of Qinglian of creation lies in Qinglian. However, in reality, the true strength of Qinglian of creation lies in the word creation. What is creation? Su Zimo murmured softly. The word creation is the most mysterious and mysterious. Immortal King Ling Long said, Qinglian of creation seizes the creation of heaven and earth. The opportunities and fortuitous encounters you obtain may seem coincidental, but they are actually all within creation. Ever since you ascended, you have been able to cultivate to this level within 10,000 years. You must have obtained countless opportunities. These are all your good fortune. Although your dragon phoenix's true body was destroyed, Your Qinglian's true body can perfectly inherit the many divine powers and secret skills of the Dragon Phoenix's true body. In other words, even the Dragon Phoenix's true body has become one of your creations. It has become a part of Qinglian's true body. This was the terror of Qinglian of creation. She could even perfectly inherit everything of the Dragon Phoenix's true body and turn it into her own creations. Lin Zhan also nodded and said, I see that you have the legacies of the immortal, Buddhist, and fiend Tao. There are even legacies of many demons. There are so many completely different, even opposing, incompatible Tao techniques. I'm afraid only Qinglian of creation can gather them in one body and live in harmony. Su Zimo was enlightened. Even an expert like Emperor Bo Sun, who had a single body of fiend and Buddhist cultivation, went wrong. Right now, he had the Pure Jade Manual for the Immortal Tao, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra for the Buddhist Tao, and the Heaven Burial Sutra for the fiend Tao. All of them were forbidden mystic manuals. The demon Tao had the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness, top-tier cultivation techniques, such as the Void Thunder Manual, and the divine powers and secret skills of the 4 sacred beasts. If it was any other living being, be it their physical body or essence spirit, they would have exploded long ago when all these Tao techniques were mixed together. Only Qinglian's true body could cultivate normally after turning all the Tao techniques into her creations. Chapter 2636. Su Zimo gradually digested the information about Qinglian. After a moment of silence, Su Zimo asked, with my current cultivation, if I can condense a Tao fruit and step into the true One realm, Qinglian's true body should be able to grow to the peak of the 12th stage. But if it's at the peak of the 12th stage, how will Qinglian's true body grow in the Grotto Heaven realm and the Tharch realm? Immortal King Linglong smiled and said, You don't have to worry about this. As for Qinglian, its origin, how much potential it has, and how many secrets it has, I'm afraid no one in the upper world can say for sure. But even if Qinglian is only at the 12th stage, it's fine. A 12th stage Qinglian is a mature state. As for how it grows in the future, it will all depend on your cultivation. Just like a child, it will only be considered an adult when it reaches the age of 10. However, it doesn't mean that the child's power will stop there. The 12th stage of Qinglian's maturity is only the starting point of its cultivation. As for what level it will reach in the future, you can only verify it yourself. Su Zimo was enlightened. If Qinglian really came from the Great Thousand World, no one would be able to say for sure. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly asked, Seniors, how much do you know about the Great Thousand World? Over the years, have any living beings from the upper world ascended there? That was because there were still a few things that could not be explained. King Linglong looked at each other.
The person who tried to kill him with the King of Yunyu was not the patriarch of the academy. The great thousand world should exist, long had never seen this person before. Of it in the history books the creation Qinglian was so it has never been confirmed. The fewer people who knew about it, the better. Can ascend to the great thousand patriarch of the academy, the human emperor and immortal King Ling Long. There was no need for him to send the grotto heaven realm. Back then, for hundreds of thousands of years, that he was just lucky. However, with their knowledge, he was swallowed by the starry sky black thousand world. The prison suppressing cauldron had just swallowed a grotto's lifespan of tens of millions of years. Now it seemed that the grotto's spiritual treasure had been deliberately fed to the prison suppressing cauldron by this forever. Is in Secondly, the great thousand world. There were too many coincidences in the immortal sex selection. Zemo learned a lot from this conversation with the human academy behind and immortal King Ling Long. Although the appearance not of the only did he obtain a lot of information about was a bit sudden, but he also confirmed some of his news from the eighth elder of the academy. Most importantly, thirdly, with the mortal patriarch of the academy did not hide that he would be more careful and prepare himself for the worst outcome. His actions were a bit suspicious according to immortal King Ling Long and alerting the snake. She and the patriarch of the academy had both received the academy attached so much importance to the creation Qinglian, since immortal King never restricted his actions. For example, he would definitely the patriarch of the academy should also know about the continent of the Nine Clouds meeting. The patriarch of the academy he would might have a greater motive to attack him than the king of patriarch of the academy knew about his relationship with the mortal as a mutated spirit and the others. A rare medicinal herb. The best way was to find a random patriarch of the academy to not let him participate in the continent of the most precious treasure in the upper world. Meeting immortal King that was also the reason why the secluded cloud the patriarch of the academy had never restricted his freedom. He was planning to capture him and refine him into a pill. On the other hand, the patriarch of the academy forever set up a trap. There were many things that could not be personally to protect him. If this was not the doing of the patriarch of the academy, that was because the higher the greater danger if he left the Qingquan academy, the more help it would be to the patriarch of the academy. The Yin-Yang talisman scripture was also derived from the 11th grade creation in the Qingquan academy, of course, close to him. The premise of all this was that the princess who set up this trap was indeed the patriarch of the academy. The patriarch of Momo was still in the Qingquan academy. Suspicious. This matter was not easy to deal with. Still unable to confirm it at the moment. Said, "Why don't you cultivate here? I can set up an immortal formation for you to block your aura. When you break through, you won't attract any attention." Suzimo nodded and said, "I'll stay here for a few days. If I can sense the opportunity to break through, I'll break through here." If the human emperor Lin Zhan recovered from his injuries, he would naturally be able to protect Su Zimo. But now, the human emperor's injuries had yet to recover. Even with the Yin-Yang talisman scripture, it would be difficult for him to gain anything in a short period of time. If Su Zimo stayed with the human emperor for too long, he would definitely arouse the vigilance of the person behind the scenes. At that time, he would very likely bring disaster to the war country. The war country was currently facing internal and external troubles. It could not withstand such an impact. Su Zimo sighed in his heart. If Wu Dao's original body was still in the demon domain, he could go to the Heaven Baron sect in the demon domain to transcend the tribulation. Even if an immortal king expert came, Wu Dao's original body could suppress him. Even if he was no match for him, Wu Dao's original body could protect Qinglian's true body and push her into the Avicii hell. But now, Wu Dao's original body had fallen into the abyss of the Avicii hell. He had completely lost contact with him, and his fate was unknown. The surroundings were dark. Wu Dao's original body felt that his body was falling uncontrollably. Whether it was his eyes or his divine sense, he could not detect anything. This feeling was as if he was passing through some kind of space tunnel, but the dizziness and tearing feeling was even more intense, and the time was even longer. Fortunately, he did not suffer any injuries during this process. After an unknown period of time, Wu Dao's body suddenly became light, and he finally regained control. Chapter 2637. Wu Dao's true body controlled his body and stood in the air, looking around. At the same time, he spread out his spirit consciousness to check out the movements around him. The surrounding environment was dark and gloomy. There were no sun, moon or stars above his head. The few light sources came from all sorts of strange plants. Some of the tall trees were pitch black with luxuriant leaves. However, most of the leaves were as black as ink.
Only a few leaves emitted a faint glow from time to time. In the dark environment, they flickered and looked rather creepy. In the distant darkness, a large shadow appeared faintly. It was motionless, as if there were many gigantic ancient beasts hidden in the depths of the darkness. In the quiet and dark environment, it was especially eerie. On the ground not far away, there were fist-sized green flames that looked like willow, the wisps floating. Wu Dao's true body focused and squinted his eyes instinctively. Below the willow, the wisps, there were scattered white bones with many traces of slashing and biting left on them. It was clear how tragic the battle was here back then. Wu Dao's true body sensed it slightly. Although there was some heaven and earth essence qi in the surroundings, it was obviously much thinner than the heavenly realm. Of course, it was far better than the Dragon Abyss planet. However, there was a dark and sinister energy mixed in this heaven and earth essence qi that was different from the heaven and earth essence qi in the heavenly realm. Wu Dao's true body felt as though he had arrived in an unfamiliar world. This world was not only incompatible with the heavenly realm's environment, it was also completely different from the atmosphere of the entire upper realm. As far as the eye could see, even the vegetation here was something that the martial arts deity had never seen before in the upper realm. Everything was strange and strange. Where is this? Wu Dao's true body frowned slightly. He sensed it carefully and realized that he had completely lost contact with Qinglian's true body. Under normal circumstances, he could maintain a connection with Qinglian's true body, even if he was in the hell of Avicii, with the prison-suppressing cauldron. However, after falling here, he was completely cut off from the outside world. Wu Dao's true body channeled the power of his grotto heaven and punched out casually. The surrounding void trembled, and a crack appeared, revealing the space tunnel inside. Wu Dao's true body flashed inside. Not long after, another part of the void split open, and Wu Dao's main body walked out of the space tunnel, frowning inwardly. Something was wrong. Although he could tear the void apart at any time and perform spatial teleportation, he was still unable to return to the Avicii Great Hell, let alone the Heaven Realm. There seemed to be an unbreakable barrier between him and the Avicii Great Hell. How could this be? Wu Dao's main body pondered as his eyes scanned the surroundings. He had just teleported and arrived near the tall shadow that he had seen at the beginning. It was only when they got closer that they could clearly see that these towering and majestic shadows, hidden in the darkness, were large stretches of undulating mountains and precipitous ridges that stretched as far as the eye could see. Wu Dao's main body originally didn't think too much about it, but his gaze inadvertently swept over the nearest mountain peak, and his pupils couldn't help but shrink. There were corpses everywhere on the mountain. There were all kinds of living beings, not only humans, but also other races. Corpses covered the entire mountain. This was no ordinary mountain peak before him. It was a mountain of corpses and pools of blood. Wu Dao's main body released his spirit consciousness and extended it outwards continuously. Corpses were strewn all over the endless mountains, and white bones were piled up beneath the precipitous ridges. In fact, some of the living beings had just died not long ago, and their flesh had yet to rot. The scary thing was that Wu Dao's main body's spirit consciousness covered an area of 5,000 kilometers and was in such a tragic state. This was a mountain of corpses and bones. Right then, Wu Dao's main body sensed more than 100 cultivators speeding towards him. The group of cultivators were not surprised by the mountain of corpses and bones around them. It was as though they were used to it and looked like they were locals. There's movement over there. Let's go take a look. We've just taken down Soul Crying Ridge, and don't let other factions take advantage of us. Sigh. The dark qi is exhausted and resources are scarce. It's getting harder to cultivate now. I wonder if I'll have the chance to become a prison general in this lifetime with my own territory and command tens of thousands of prison guards with countless beauties. Prison general? Don't count on it. We're destined to be prison guards for the rest of our lives. Killing is so frequent in the North Ridge. It's good enough if we're lucky enough to live for a few more years. Even if we cultivate to become a prison general, we might not be able to live for long. Didn't our territorial lord of Soul Crying Ridge get killed by our territorial lord? Wu Dao's main body frowned slightly when he heard the conversation. Dark Qi. Prison guards. Prison generals. Soul-crying ridge. North Ridge. Soul-crying ridge and North Ridge should be the same place. However, what were the Dark Qi, prison guards and prison generals, that these cultivators were talking about? Ever since he ascended to the upper realm, Wu Dao's main body had spent most of his time in seclusion cultivating. However, he had browsed through too many cultivation techniques and secret skills of the upper realm. In the Avicii Hell alone, there were countless inheritances from 3,000 realms. In those inheritances, there had never been any mention of Dark Qi or prison guards. Through the senses of Wu Dao's main body, the cultivation realms of the 100 cultivators varied. The lower ones were probably mystic immortals, while the higher ones were heaven immortals. The cultivator in the lead should be a rank 9 heaven immortal. Furthermore, Wu Dao's main body noticed that although these cultivators were in the form of humans, there were some slight differences. The pupils of these cultivators were brown. Perhaps due to the lack of light, their skin was pale and lacked a lot of color. These cultivators also exuded a sinister and cold aura that was extremely similar to the surrounding environment. Wu Dao's main body had never seen such an aura in the upper realm. He knew nothing about this place and was about to ask someone about it. At that thought, Wu Dao's main body walked towards this group of people. Commander Cui, how many underworld stones will we get after the territorial lord takes down Soul-crying Ridge? A cultivator in the crowd asked with a smile. Don't worry, you won't be left out. Commander Cui said indifferently. Leader, look. Someone's coming over. Right then, a few cultivators pointed at a purple-robed man who was walking in the air and reminded him. What's that person's cultivation realm? Why can't I detect it? He's even wearing a mask to hide himself. Leader, why do I feel like that person exudes the aura of a living person? He doesn't seem like someone from North Ridge. He looks like a fat sheep. He might have a lot of underworld stones on him. A few cultivators discussed softly. Commander Cui looked at the purple-robed man not far away and narrowed his eyes, sending a voice transmission. Wait for my instructions later. I'll check him out first. If he's a living person, we'll kill him first. If there are any underworld stones, we brothers will split them first. Understood. The cultivators behind him quickly replied and licked their lips. Their eyes glowed with excitement. Chapter 2638. Hey, where did you come from? Commander Cui glared at the purple-robed cultivator not far away and asked loudly. Where is this? Wearing a cold silver mask, the purple-robed cultivator asked in a deep voice instead of answering. This is Soul-sobbing Ridge. Commander Cui replied. Where is Soul-sobbing Ridge? The purple-robed cultivator continued asking. Commander Cui replied. Soul-sobbing Ridge is a mountain ridge in the North Ridge. There are hundreds of thousands of mountain ridges in the North Ridge, and Soul-sobbing Ridge is merely one of the most inconspicuous ones. For some reason, the purple-robed cultivator seemed to be emitting an invisible might. Each time the purple-robed cultivator asked a question, Commander Cui would answer instinctively, as though he could not control himself. A commotion broke out from the crowd behind him. Startled, Commander Cui reacted quickly, and his expression darkened. He glared at the purple-robed cultivator not far away and hollered. I'm asking you a question. Answer me honestly and don't change the topic. I'll ask you again. Where are you from? The purple-robed cultivator remained silent for a moment before replying. Heaven Realm. Heaven Realm? Commander Cui and the 100-odd cultivators behind him were clearly stunned. But soon, Commander Cui and the others looked at each other and burst into laughter. Ha 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 ha. This person said that he's from the Heaven Realm? He's so dumb that he can't even lie. Commander Cui, let's not waste our breath on him. I think he's just toying with us. Let's kill him first. Let's see what treasures he has in his storage bag. One of the cultivators could not help but urge. Let me give you guys a piece of advice. Don't court death. Suddenly, the purple-robed cultivator spoke with a calm tone. Wu Dao's main body had just arrived here, and did not know anything about this place. He did not want to kill the cultivators here, and that was the reason why he reminded them. However, if these people wanted to court death, he would not show mercy either. Bloody hell, how dare you threaten us? A grade 8 Earth Immortal cultivator could not hold it in any longer and laughed sinisterly. Let me see what you've got first. The moment that cultivator made his move, the remaining 100-odd cultivators attacked as well. In an instant, many magical treasures and weapons flew through the air. Another half of the cultivators rushed toward Wu Dao's original body with sharp blades in their hands. They wanted to fight him in close combat. Behind the silver mask, Wu Dao's eyes suddenly became even more profound. He gently raised his hand. The 100-odd cultivators on the other side, including Commander Chui, froze on the spot, unable to move at all. Even the magical equipment that was charging at Wu Dao's real body was suspended in midair, as if they had been fixed to the spot by an invisible force. Many cultivators widened their eyes in shock. What is this? Body-fixing technique? Commander Chui's face was still filled with shock. What kind of body immobilization technique was able to immobilize him in place? Could it be a supreme divine ability? Could this person be a prison general? Their lord was a warden, but even the lord couldn't do this. All he did was raise his hand, and they couldn't even move. While the cultivators were lost in their thoughts, Wu Dao gently waved his hand. That action was as though he was swatting away a few noisy mosquitoes. In midair, the Dharma treasures and weapons seemed to be affected by some sort of power, and flew back, at an even faster speed, entering the bodies of the cultivators. Poof! 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 The bodies of the cultivators exploded one after another, bursting with blood mists. The landing points of the Dharma treasures and weapons were extremely precise, and pierced the glabellas of the cultivators, causing their essence spirits to be destroyed, and they died on the spot. In the blink of an eye, Commander Chui was the only one left of the 100-odd cultivators. Commander Chui's face was frightfully pale, and his body was stiff, shivering in fear. He could not understand how he managed to survive. Wu Dao's real body did not say anything more to him. Arriving close, he captured Commander Chui's essence spirit, and used his soul-searching technique. Since you guys won't tell me, I'll take a look myself. A moment later, the soul-searching technique ended. Commander Chui's essence spirit turned dim, and his aura was weak. He was on the verge of death. Thereafter, Wu Dao's real body tossed the essence spirit away in deep thought. Just as he had guessed, he had already arrived at an alternate world that was completely different from the upper world. The cultivation resources here were different from the upper world. The living beings of the upper world cultivated by absorbing heaven and earth essence chi. Apart from their surroundings, they could also absorb heaven and earth essence chi through elixirs, essence spirit stones, and other cultivation resources. In this foreign world, although there was also heaven-earth yuan chi, there was another type of energy mixed within the heaven-earth yuan chi. That energy was the dark and cold aura that Wu Dao's real body had sensed. That aura was mixed within heaven and earth essence chi, and was known as netherworld chi by the living beings of this alternate world. The cultivation resource that the cultivators needed was the netherworld stone. As for the prison guards and prison generals that the cultivators mentioned, they were the cultivation realms of this alternate world. In this alternate world, be it heaven essence, earth essence, or heaven essence cultivators, they were all at the bottom of the hierarchy, and were collectively known as prison guards. Only by condensing netherworld crystals could one become a prison general. The so-called netherworld crystals actually corresponded to the Dao fruits of the upper world. In other words, a prison general's cultivation realm was equivalent to the true first realm, corresponding to the true immortals, true demons and arhats of the upper world. Above the prison general was the legendary prison king, corresponding to the grotto heaven realm powerhouses of the upper world. This Commander Chui's cultivation realm was limited. Although he was at Heaven Essence Stage 9, he was only a prison guard, and was at the bottom of this alternate world. There was not much information about this alternate world. Commander Chui only knew that he belonged to the Weeping Soul Ridge, and the Weeping Soul Ridge was one of the 100,000 mountain ridges. Even so, in Commander Chui's memory, the Weeping Soul Ridge's territory was more than 1,000,000 miles, and the living beings in its territory numbered in the hundreds of millions. When Wu Dao's real body saw this information, he was shocked.
It was just one of the most inconspicuous mountain ridges in the 100,000 mountain ridges, but it was more than 1,000,000 miles and ruled over hundreds of millions of living beings. What kind of scenery would the other even more vast mountain ridges be like? According to Commander Chui's memory, the 100,000 mountain ridges were collectively known as the North Ridge, and the owner of the North Ridge was known as the King of the North Ridge, ruling over the entire North Ridge. What made Wu Dao's real body feel regretful was that after searching through all of Commander Chui's memories, he could not find any specific information about this alternate world. What Commander Chui knew was that the North Ridge was the most he knew. If he wanted to know more, he might have to find a cultivator at the level of a prison general. Prison guard, prison general, Wu Dao's real body murmured softly, and a light flashed through his mind. Could it be that I've come to hell? This thought flashed through the mind of Wu Dao's real body, and his heart trembled. Thinking back to the dark and gloomy environment around him, thinking about the mountains of corpses and bones around him, thinking about the strange titles, and the completely different cultivation civilization, Wu Dao's real body felt that this was more and more likely. Chapter 2639. There were very few records of hell in the upper world, and there were only many legends, such as the netherworld, and hell. However, no one had seen what hell was like. The heavenly wolf had once said that it was impossible for living beings to enter the underworld. Only after the death of living beings, their remaining souls could enter the netherworld. There was a difference of a single word between the netherworld and hell. Were the two of them the same world? Although he obtained a lot of information from searching Commander Chui's soul, there were still too many unknowns for Wu Dao's true body in this foreign world. However, from Commander Chui's memories, Wu Dao's true body found the center of Soul Crying Ridge. The territorial lord of Soul Crying Ridge was a hell general with a cultivation realm equivalent to a perfected immortal in the heavenly realm. As such, his understanding of this foreign world was definitely more detailed. Wu Dao's true body tore through the void and teleported directly. Although Soul Crying Ridge was only one of the 100,000 mountain ridges, it occupied an extremely vast area with hundreds of millions of living beings within it that were all under the control of a single territorial lord. Before long, Wu Dao's true body arrived in the depths of Soul Crying Ridge and stood in the air in the core region. Roar! The moment Wu Dao's true body appeared, the roar of ferocious beasts could be heard from the nearby forest. Numerous flying beasts soared into the sky, continuously crying out warnings in mid-air. Who's there? A loud roar sounded from the forest. The pitch-black ancient trees swayed. Countless creatures were gathering in this place from all directions of the mountain forest. Among those living beings, there were not only human cultivators, but also all sorts of races. Some of the living beings had human faces, but a pair of gigantic bone wings on their backs. Some of the living beings were tall, and were dozens of feet tall. Their upper bodies were bare, and their auras were domineering. They resembled the barbarians of Tianhuang mainland. There were also living beings with human faces and beast bodies with gigantic wings on their backs. They seemed like rare ferocious beasts. Endless creatures surged with killing intent, stepping on countless corpses. They were like a black tide, quickly passing through the mountain forest, charging over murderously. Where's your territorial lord? Against the many living beings that were surging over from all directions, Wu Dao's true body asked with a calm expression, "You think you can meet our grand lord?" The one who spoke was a xenogeniac. He had the body of a human, but his face had no facial features. His mouth was on his chest, and his fangs were sharp. His eyes were on his palms, and he was looking at Wu Dao's true self with a mysterious gaze. This xenogeniac creature was not weak. It was probably a prison general. However, according to the realm classification of this foreign realm, this strange creature could only be considered a beginner hell general, which was equivalent to a true immortal in the consolidation stage. You want to seize the Crying Soul Ridge by yourself? Another prison general questioned loudly. Wu Dao's main body frowned slightly as he looked at the formation of these living beings. He had just arrived, so he didn't want to be too ostentatious. But looking at the other party's posture, it seemed that if he said anything wrong,
they would swarm him and tear him to pieces. Wu Dao's main body slowly said, I came from the heavenly realm. I don't want to fight over the Weeping Soul Ridge. I want to find your lord and understand some information about this place. Heaven Realm? The living beings of the Crying Soul Ridge were stunned for a moment, but soon they sneered. Since you say you're from the heavenly realm, don't blame us for eating you. Saliva dripped from the bloody mouth on the chest of the xenogenic creature. Sharp claws gradually stretched out from his 5 fingers. Kill! A roar suddenly erupted from the crowd. The next moment, the living beings of the Crying Soul Ridge swarmed forward. Wu Dao's main body's expression turned cold. He didn't understand why these living beings of the Crying Soul Ridge were so hostile to the people of the heavenly realm. But since these living beings were courting death, there was no need for him to hold back. Wu Dao's main body explained to these living beings once. He was already patient enough to give them a chance. Die! Wu Dao's main body suddenly shouted and erupted with the sound domain secret technique. He didn't even use the sound of all spirits for this sound domain secret technique. This was just the simplest roar. It purely relied on his physical body, bloodline, and powerful lungs to erupt with a sound domain attack. Even so, the living beings of the Crying Soul Ridge could no longer withstand it. Puff, puff, puff. Everywhere he looked, inside and outside the forest, the bodies of many living beings exploded. Broken limbs flew everywhere. Blood mist filled the air, and the smell of blood soared to the sky. The impact of this sound domain even caused the entire mountain range to shake violently. Countless mountain peaks shattered and collapsed, and many gravel rolled down. In an instant, more than half of the living beings in the surrounding area were killed by Wu Dao's main body. Not only that, Wu Dao's main body roared, and a huge earthquake occurred in the mountain range of millions of miles around the Crying Soul Ridge. This was the power of Wu Dao's main body. Originally, there were still shouts of killing in the surroundings. However, after Wu Dao body's roar, the clamor of all the living beings disappeared in an instant. All that was left was the sound of many mountains collapsing, rubble rolling down, and the loud noises of landslides. As far as the eye could see, the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. It was a scene of doomsday. Around Wu Dao's main body, there were a few living beings left standing on the spot. They were so scared that their faces were drained of blood, and their souls were almost scattered. Those few living beings were all prison generals. It was not that their cultivation was sufficient to withstand the impact of the sound domain of Wu Dao's main body. It was because Wu Dao's main body wanted them to stay. Wu Dao's main body did not explain either. He reached out and grabbed, capturing the essence spirits of those few living beings, as he prepared to use a soul-searching technique. Right then, Wu Dao's main body's heart skipped a beat. In the depths of the Crying Soul Ridge, behind a cloud of dust, a figure was fleeing rapidly into the distance. The aura of that person was far stronger than the few prison generals he had captured. If he was not wrong, the person who was escaping should be the territorial lord of the Crying Soul Ridge. Wu Dao's main body moved and chased after him. The territorial lord of the Crying Soul Ridge had not escaped far. When he turned back, his expression changed starkly. The purple-robed man with the silver mask had already arrived behind him. No matter how fast his movement technique was, how could he be faster than Wu Dao's main body? Knowing that there was no hope of escaping, the territorial lord of the Crying Soul Ridge turned around fiercely and transformed into his true form. It was a Qiongqi ferocious beast that lunged towards Wu Dao's main body. Be it in Tianhuang mainland or the upper world, Qiongqi ferocious beasts were living beings with powerful bloodlines. However, against Wu Dao's main body, the Qiongqi was no different from an ant. With a casual slap, Wu Dao's main body caused the Qiongqi's brain to burst and its body to explode. Wu Dao's main body reached out and captured the essence spirit of the Qiongqi. At the same time, a crystal that emitted a cold aura fell from the Qiongqi's forehead. Wu Dao's main body took it and took a look. If he was not wrong, that crystal should be the dark crystal, the Dao fruit condensed by perfected immortals in the upper world. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support,
And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.